All right, guys, welcome back to Modern Day Debates. We got a fun one today on the theological front. Today we got Jim Bob on the affirmative, Dr. Ron Garret on the negative, and then we're going to hash it out here over the next hour and a half, 2 hours. We're going to do 10-minute openings, 5-10 minutes. You don't got to use the whole amount of time. If you want to go over just a slight bit, I'll ask the other debater if they'll allow it. And then we'll get into a 60-minute open dialogue, and then a 30-minute Q&A. 30 minutes usually the minimum. Kind of depends on how long you guys want to chill and react to the super chats that we get for you. And then real quick, I want to remind everyone, like the video, get your tickets to DEBATECON 8 coming up in July in Dallas. That's going to be really fun. You got the DeSouza versus Wilson and the Wilson versus Brackatella, and then about 5 to 8 more other ones after that. So it's going to be fun. And you can come meet James and everybody there. It's going to be, as he would say, amazing. And I will start it with Jim Bob here on the affirmative, and I'll start your time. Yes, sir?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you introduced us, I think you actually forgot to say what the topic was.
Yeah, I was just about to
get
to that. Sorry, buddy. Yeah, I was going to turn it over for the affirmative on the prompt here, which is the belief in God reasonable? And Jim Bob, oh, it's all good, buddy. Jim Bob, I'll start the time whenever you're ready.
All right, I can start now. Okay, so is the belief in God reasonable or rational? What does it mean to be reasonable or rational? It's based on or in accordance with reason or logic. In order to reason that the belief in God is a rational belief or a reasonable belief, I will be using a very simple argument for God. And by God, I mean a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. But before I present that argument, it's important that we lay out a whole plethora of things we need to first assume before we can even make arguments or inquire about whether or not a belief is rational. We have to assume a mind exists, both my mind and Ron's, and that they're particular minds, and they're not the same minds. You also have to assume some type of ontology of the mind. If my opponent assumes that a mind is merely a physical apparatus identical to the brain, I'm not sure he can reason at all. Minds which are capable of evaluating and appraising propositions, we have to assume. We have to assume that the external world and its regularity with which we couldn't do induction has to maintain. We have to assume that knowledge and truth exists. We have to assume information and meaning exists. We have to assume universals and particulars exist in order to speak in an intelligible way about the world and ourselves. The reason I bring these up is because we don't determine these things are rational, but we rather assume these things in order to do subsequent analysis of what's rational. These things have to be first assumed and in place. But without God, can these things be in place? Is there any reason to believe in these things without God? I don't think so. In other words, you have to first believe in these things, then you can investigate. Keep in mind, all of the items listed are not found as matter. They're not empirically verified. We don't do any tests on them. They are not determined using measurements or empiricism or science, which for the most part, an anti-God belief is holding to as their epistemology. If we ask, well, what is a reasonable belief? They might say something we can test, something we can look at, something we can hold, something we can smell and eat. Well, that's not the case for them either. Being that logic itself is listed in the definition of rational and as the arbiter for determining whether something is rational or not, including beliefs, it follows that we are holding logic to be universal. That is the status of logic. That is to say, the laws of thought are universal. By universal, I mean it applies to all potential circumstances. I would argue that logic, specifically the classical laws of logic, are absolute and universal, unchanging, and not dependent on human opinion or convention. I would also argue that the laws of logic are conceptual and abstract, hence my argument tonight. The laws of logic are universal and conceptual. I think my opponent will agree with that. What do we know about concepts? Concepts are mind dependent. They are associated with the mind. There is no concept we can refer to without assuming a mind. The problem is, with Ron's view, is that concepts themselves, being that they're based in minds, when he points to the laws of logic and they are universal, he can't point to any particular mind to ground them, to justify the laws of logic themselves. They can't be grounded in my mind only. They can't be grounded in just Ron's mind. We are particulars. So what type of mind would ground a universal unchanging, invariant concepts like the three laws of thought. Well, I would argue a divine mind would do that job. How do we ground the laws of logic? If they are universal and conceptual, we cannot ground them in, like I said, Ron's mind or my mind. They must be grounded in an unchanging mind. If I hold God as an unchanging mind, a transcendental mind, and the laws of logic are in fact transcendental, you don't find them in nature at all, but we assume that they exist. They have some type of ontic. Then I have a perfectly good reason to believe in God if God is merely the holder of the laws of logic as a mind. My opponent not only has to deal with my argument, but he also must provide a standard or criterion to call a belief reasonable himself. So if he says God is an unreasonable position or an unreasonable belief, he has to tell me what constitutes a reasonable belief and how it is that God is outside of that criterion. So I'm interested to hear his criterion. By what standard does Ron use to determine a belief itself is reasonable or not? I bet I could find a couple of things Ron believes in that doesn't meet his own criterion. In addition to that, keep in mind we're debating tonight. We are assuming all of the things listed in my opener, but we're assuming first and foremost that we have a direction toward truth, that we're actually capable through debate and dialogue to gear ourselves in a direction toward truth. However, without God, what is the direction toward from Ron's perspective? I argue that a direction toward truth would be a direction toward God. That would be the purpose of pursuing truth, is to know God, the grounding of all truth. From Ron's perspective, there's actually no reason to be here at all. There's absolutely no reason. Why? Because it's completely teleological. There's no purpose. There's no direction. There's no reason. There's no reason to be here. There's no reason to pursue the truth. There's no reason to hold true beliefs. There's no reason to abandon false beliefs. It would be just like a useless sort of play that we're doing here, right? And I get a number of people to concede to this position that they admit right off the bat, yeah, I have no purpose to be here. There really is no purpose to pursue truth. I can't even tell you why you should abandon a false belief, whether it's God or anything else. Go ahead and believe what you believe. Furthermore, Ron might take the position that his mind, right? Because when we talk about what's reasonable, we have to actually assume a mind exists. Ron can't ground and determine what a mind is. He has to say it's a brain. Not only a brain, but he has to say that it's a brain that's completely deterministic, that it just unfolds based on chemistry and neurology. It's just doing a thing. That means that if that's the case, then all beliefs are determined epiphenomenal effects of a brain. That means his brain producing an outcome and my brain producing an outcome are on the same level. They're on the same ground. There is no more reasonable belief or less reasonable belief. There's just percolating brains doing stuff. That's all there is, right? Just action, matter in motion, matter in motion. So I don't know how a person who holds the belief, absent God, would probably reduce to pure matter in motion, right? Deterministic matter in motion. How could Ron make a distinction between a reasonable belief and a false belief if matter itself is all identical, right? It's all just particular, clusters of things happening. Well, he really can't. So what I'm looking for tonight is one, I want him to contend with my argument, given the status of truth, given the status of knowledge, given the status of the laws of logic being conceptual and universal. I want to know from his view, being that he has to appeal to logic to determine whether a belief is rational or not. Why does he believe in logic? I mean, that's a fair question. Why would you believe in logic? I would hold that his belief in logic is just as much a leap in his worldview as he thinks my leap to believe in God is. So there's going to be a number of other things that Ron affirms the belief in that won't meet his criterion. And with that, I'll see the rest of my time.
All right. And I'm resetting the timer here and ready when you are.
Okay, so I actually prepared an opening based on an opening that you gave for a previous debate that you did on a similar topic. And the opening that you gave here was fairly similar to that, but different in some ways that are going to make some of my script actually not relevant. So I'm going to have to wing it a little bit, but let's see how far I get. So I found often that when people disagree about things, it turns out that what they're really disagreeing about is the definitions of words. And once you get past that, it turns out they actually agree on a lot of the substantial stuff. And I'm actually glad that you changed your opening in some of the ways that you did, because I think we're actually going to agree on more than I expected that we would. But I don't think we're going to agree on everything. And so I think it's reasonable if we start out making sure that we agree on the definitions. If we're going to talk about whether belief in God is reasonable, that we start out by agreeing on the definitions of the words God and reasonable, because I don't think that we do. I'm going to start with God. You defined God. So in your previous talk, you defined God as a necessary, universal, and absolute mind. But this time you changed that definition and you said it was a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. So I'm not quite sure what your actual definition of God is, but that's neither here nor there, because neither of this is what I think of when I hear the word God, especially when it's spelled with a capital G. When I think of capital G God, I think of some kind of deity, which is kind of sort of similar to a necessary, universal, absolute mind, or a, let me make sure I get the words right here, necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. But that's not what the word, it's kind of like that, but it's not quite the same. And I think the differences are important. I happen to know that you're an Orthodox Christian. And when I hear an Orthodox Christian say the word God, what naturally comes to my mind is not a necessary, universal, absolute, transcendental mind, but Jesus and the Bible and the Catechism and parting the Red Sea and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I don't want to knock down a straw man, so I'm going to do my best to engage with your argument as you've presented it. So let's look at that argument. And I was going to say that the position that you were defending, because this is what you did last time, is actually stronger than your brief. But you didn't do that, so I'm going to have to skip this. I'm just going to say quickly what I was going to say, because you did this last time. You seem to me to be defending the position that God actually exists, which is fine, but you don't actually have to do that. You're making things harder on yourself by trying to prove that God actually exists, because you don't have to prove the truth of a proposition in order to defend that believing that proposition is reasonable. So I want to give you some examples. I brought some props tonight. So I got some steel rings here. And I think it's reasonable for me to believe that these steel rings are solid objects, despite the fact that I can prove to you that they're not. Now, that was obviously just a trick. But there's actually a serious point here. All the things we call solid objects, including these rings and the chair that I'm sitting in and my body and so on, aren't really solid. All of these things are made of atoms, and atoms are mostly empty space. The reason these objects normally can't go through each other is not because they're really solid, but because there are electrons on the outside of all these atoms, and electrons repel each other. But it's still reasonable to believe that these things are solid, even though they really aren't. If you try to walk through a brick wall, you will fail, despite the fact that both you and the wall are mostly empty space. I'll give you another example. At the core of modern science are two theories, quantum mechanics and general relativity. Both of these theories are established as true by overwhelming experimental evidence, and yet at least one of them must be wrong because they are mathematically incompatible with each other. It is logically impossible for them both to be actually true, but it's still reasonable, given our current knowledge, to believe that they are both true. And notice that I just hedged with given our current knowledge, and that is actually important. If a parent tells their 6-year-old child that Santa Claus is real, then I would say that it's reasonable for that child to believe it, because I think it's reasonable for a 6-year-old child to believe that their parents are trustworthy sources of information. And this matter of trustworthiness lets me give you an example in the opposite direction too, where it is unreasonable for someone to believe something that actually is true. This is hard to demonstrate as a thought experiment, so I'm going to do one last little demo. I have a playing card here, and I promise you this is not a magic trick. It's just the best way that I could think of to make this point. I am telling you that this card is the 3 of clubs. Is it reasonable for you to believe that I am telling you the truth and that this card really is the 3 of clubs? In our last debate, you called me a liar. And so if you think I'm a liar, if you have a reasonable belief that I'm a liar, then you do not have a reasonable belief that I'm telling you the truth, that this card is the three of clubs. And so it's not reasonable for you to believe that it is the three of clubs, despite the fact that it is, in fact, the three of clubs. Okay, I promise I'm done with my demos. Now, I want to actually engage with the substance of your argument as you've presented it. And you started out by listing a long list of assumptions.
You got 4 minutes left.
In your original debate, I counted 9. I think there were more this time. I don't have anywhere, obviously I'm not going to be able to address all of them. I'm going to just focus on 2 of them because I think that'll give us more than enough to keep us busy for the rest of the evening. So you said that we have to assume that minds exist in order to even have a coherent conversation. Now, saying that we have to assume this is a very clever rhetorical trick because you aren't actually assuming it. What you are actually doing is presenting a tacit argument for the proposition that minds exist. If we make that argument explicit, it goes something like this. Minds are necessary in order to discuss whether or not minds exist. You and I are discussing whether or not minds exist, therefore we must have minds, and therefore minds must exist. So the assumption that you have actually made is that minds are necessary to explain things that we observe, namely the fact that we are having a discussion about the existence of minds. The problem is that you haven't defined what you mean by mind. And that word comes with a lot of philosophical baggage, like that there's a distinction between mind and brain. But you haven't actually demonstrated any of that. And in particular, you haven't demonstrated that there is any distinction between minds and brains. It may well be that brains are sufficient to explain our observation that we're having a discussion about the existence of minds. Now, whether there is a distinction between minds and brains used to be a legitimate philosophical debate. But it isn't anymore because nowadays we have machines that can do all of the things that brains and minds can do, including having conversations about whether or not minds exist. So it is manifestly not true that brains are necessary to do these things. So unless you want to argue that AIs have minds, your necessary assumption that minds exist is revealed as not merely begging the question, but an empirical claim that crumbles in the face of actual evidence. The second assumption that I want to challenge is that the laws of logic are universal and absolute, unchanging, and not dependent on human opinion and convention. Now, this is an old and venerable argument. It goes back to at least as far as St. Augustine, around 400 AD, which matters because in Augustine's time, the paragon of logic and reason was Euclid's Elements, which is famously based on 5 assumptions or postulates. The 5th one is called the parallel postulate, and it says that if you have a line and a point not on that line, then it is possible to draw exactly one line through that point that is parallel to the given line. That is pretty long-winded, and Euclid's actual statement of it was even more long-winded. And for almost 2,000 years, people tried to prove that it was true so that they wouldn't have to assume it. Everyone who tried to prove it failed, and the reason they failed is that Euclid's 5th postulate isn't actually true. It turns out that there are consistent systems of geometry where there are 0 parallel lines to the point, and systems where there are many different parallel lines, in fact, an infinite number.
1 minute.
And these systems turn out to be useful for different applications. There is no Platonic truth about the parallel postulate, but it took literally 2,000 years for humans to figure this out. And there are lots and lots of more modern examples. There's something called the continuum hypothesis, and another one that's literally called the axiom of choice, which you can choose to use or not. And so I would like to suggest that we start by achieving clarity on exactly what it is that we're talking about. Are you going to stick with, well, in particular, what's your definition of God and what's your definition of reasonable? And maybe the best place to start would be for me to just ask you if you think that computers have or can have minds, or is that something unique to humans?
I'm
done.
Alrighty. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys doing those openings. Right on track here. We're going to get into the open dialogue. Guys, go ahead, click like on the videos, subscribe if you're new to the channel. And we do have a, right here, let's see if it pops up. We have a Facebook clips page. We have a TikTok now, as well as a, what is this last one here? A new sponsor, which is Yonaguni Sushi, international cuisine in Puerto Rico, in Aguadilla. I highly recommend if you're stopping by, check it out. And more about that later. So we'll get into the open dialogue, 60 minutes on the clock here, starting right now. So Jim Bob, if you'd like to respond to his opening.
Yeah. So a couple things in there. One, I didn't really get a criterion for what constitutes a rational or reasonable belief. It sounded like you said if a kid is told that Santa Claus exists, then they have a reason that they're reasonable in their belief. It's a reasonable, rational belief.
Well, it depends on who's telling them.
Yeah, if their parents tell them.
Real quick, I just want to ask that we let each other finish whatever question or line of thought we're doing before we respond. And then if you don't feel like you're going to get the time to respond, I'll make sure that you do. So just be respectful to Jim Bob in that full question.
But if he's asking me something about something that I said and he's getting it wrong, then we're going to save a lot of time if I correct him on the spot rather than waiting to the end and then having to rewind.
And say, I understand
way
that.
Back at the beginning, you got this wrong.
Cool. Yeah, just I'm just making sure that it doesn't turn into a interruption habit here.
I'm all for that.
All right, go ahead, Jim Bob. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so a child is reasonable in their belief in Santa Claus if their parents tell them, if they trust their parents, depending on who tells them, right? So if
by that, you disagree with that?
Good.
I just want to know if you agree or disagree with that.
No, I'm using your standard first, and I'm just going to draw out the conclusion of your standard for a second, okay?
You can ask him whatever question.
So, based on that as the standard, if my parents tell me God exists, still today, I called my parents and they say God exists and I trust them. By your standard, it's reasonable for me to believe in God, correct?
Are you 6 years old?
No, it doesn't matter. You said if I trust the person.
No, it does matter. There's a reason why I made it a 6-year-old child.
Okay. So at what point?
The standards that apply for reasonable beliefs of 6-year-olds are different than the standards that apply for reasonable beliefs of adults.
On what basis? Ruh-roh.
I am amazed that I actually have to defend this.
I know you are.
Because 6-year-olds don't have fully functioning brains. And so it's not reasonable to expect the same things from 6-year-olds that we expect from fully functioning adults.
Okay. Would you say it would be a 6-year-old belief expectation that they believe in God or Santa Claus?
If their parents tell them that, then it's not unreasonable, and they have nobody, and that they have no reason to doubt their parents, then yeah, sure, it's reasonable for them to believe that. But I would also expect that as they grow up and that they acquire more information, that they would start to question those beliefs.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they question the beliefs and they're adults and they still hold the belief in God outside of the threshold of the age that you arbitrarily defined as unreasonable versus adult, now I'm reasonable. So if a bunch of adults, right, the majority of humankind believes in God, on what basis are you declaring their belief unreasonable?
Because it's incompatible. Well, so now I have to press you on what you mean by God. Because there are definitions of God where, it's perfectly reasonable. And let me be actually very specific about this.
Okay.
There is a definition of God that is actually very close to something that you find in quantum mechanics, something called the universal wave function. If you define God as this sort of abstract thing that is somehow omniscient and kind of keeps an eye on everything but doesn't actively intervene and is not actually a person that you can pray to that will answer your prayers, then there are things in quantum mechanics that kind of sort of look like that. But I'm guessing that's not what you mean by God, right?
Right, but if I was defending any definition of God, being that the debate is it reasonable to believe in God? If you just admitted that there is a definition of God that's reasonable, it sounds like you'd conceded the debate.
Well, maybe, except that I am having this debate with somebody that I know to be an Orthodox Christian. And so I have certain, reasonable expectations about what you actually mean by God that you are being cagey about.
Well, the thing is, if you have to start with the proposition of a broad concept of God and you can whittle it down, what we're establishing here is even the broad concept of God as the creator of all things, omniscient being, someone who, like I said in my opener, someone who can ground a type of mind that's not just a human particular mind, a type of mind that can actually ground and house, let's say, universal concepts like the laws of logic. If that mind was necessary in my reasoning, it would be reasonable to believe that a mind exists that transcends human minds that can justify laws of logic and truth and stuff, right?
So what do you mean by mind?
Well, a mind is like, from a human perspective, a mind is a knower.
A knower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A knower, a human knower, however, can
a computer have a mind?
No.
Okay. So
that's what I actually want to touch on that, because you actually said in your opener that computers can think and do things, and
I didn't say they could think.
Well, you said they could do stuff that humans.
I said they could have conversation. They could engage in conversations, including conversations about very abstract topics like whether or not minds exist.
You said that machines can do what humans do.
I said that machines can engage in conversations.
Well,
I read from a script. I can tell you exactly word for word what I said.
Ron, machines, and you said you don't need the human, but the human needed to make the machine. You said it in your opener. Read it back.
I didn't say anything about who made who.
Read the part in your opener about machines and humans.
Sorry, I closed the document because I wasn't expecting to need it again. Yeah, okay. So whether there's a distinction between minds and brains used to be a legitimate philosophical debate, but it isn't anymore, because nowadays we have machines that can do all the things that brains and minds can do,
really,
including having conversations about whether or not minds exist.
Okay, stop there. Stop there. You said machines can do all the things that human minds can do. The human mind made the machine. Did the machine make itself?
It can. Nowadays, it absolutely can.
No, without the human.
It can. Nowadays, yes, it can. It can
no,
humans.
No, without the human coding it to do it.
Yes, it really can.
So
nowadays, computers can write their own code. They really can.
What made the computer write its own code?
Well, nowadays, the way you get a computer to write its own code is you literally just say, write some code for me.
Yeah, who does that? Who does that?
Well, most of the time it's humans doing that, but you
when
can
is it not?
actually get, well, you can set up two AIs to talk to each other.
You can?
Have one of them ask.
Wait. You can set an AI? Is that a me as a human, or?
So we are still in the early days of AI.
That's not what I asked you, dude. I don't need a story about AI. I'm asking you, you said computers and machines can do all these things that humans can do, which was alluding to the idea that they are somehow independent and neutral on their own doing their thing. But the reality is humans made them. We engineered them to do things.
Yeah, so
that's false. So your opening statement has a falsity in it. So just concede.
Okay, maybe I need to wordsmith it a little bit.
Okay, good. So if that's the case,
computers can do the things that minds can do that make you think that the minds exist. So what exactly is it that you think that humans can do that computers can't, that shows that we have minds and they don't?
Code computers to do things.
But computers can do that. They absolutely can do that.
No, only with us to do. Look, dude, how are you not getting this? How are you not getting this? Ron, hold on. Human beings make machines. They make machines do stuff. One of the things that humans make machines do is stuff that humans kind of do. The machine itself on its own doesn't do that without the human.
No, you're actually wrong about that.
Oh, really?
Yes, really.
Show me.
And this happens, I mean, this is literally my area of expertise.
Oh, really?
This is, yes.
So show me an example of a machine absent the human coding it, engineering it to unfold a set of commands that are complex. Show me where the computer without a human self-existed.
How do you expect me to show that to you right now here in this context?
Give me an example.
Is there really any doubt in your mind that if I went away for a couple of days that I could come back with a machine that does exactly what you described?
Machine made by who?
Nowadays, the machines are made by other machines.
And who makes the machine that makes the machine?
Originally, this was all started by humans.
That's right. And without humans, hold on, without humans, hold on. Without humans, it wouldn't be able to do that, right?
No, that's not
Great.
true. Nowadays, the machines could actually get
Holy
along with
shit,
that.
dude. What's a machine? This is unbelievable. A machine is something that's built by humans, correct?
Not necessarily.
When is a machine not built by a human?
Is your
That's a
car a
computer.
machine?
Is it built by a human?
Is your car a machine?
Yeah.
Your car is almost certainly today not built by a human. It's
Really?
almost certainly built by it's almost certainly
really?
built by a robot.
Oh, by a machine.
By a machine, yeah.
And who built the robot?
Probably another robot.
And then who built that robot?
Originally, it all started with, I mean, obviously humans kickstarted the process.
Great. Yeah. So I'm saying is a machine can't be the source of kickstarting its own making process. It has to be intentional. Now, when you ask me the question, what's distinct is that humans have intentionality. Machines themselves just act if-then statements. They just do commands. That's all they do.
And how do you know that that's not what we do?
Well, if you're claiming that that's what we do, then knowledge is impossible, if that's what you're claiming.
What is knowledge?
Justified true belief.
Justified true belief.
And I'll tell you how. I'll give you an argument and you see if you can contend with it. If you're a machine and I'm a machine and everything I think and do and say is deterministic, that is to say it's just the result of physical dominoes happening, I have no say in the matter of the pursuit of whatever I'm about to say or come to the knowledge of or any of my evaluations. They are events. They're just events. Now, if human thinking, what you call human thinking, is merely just physical events happening, they're actually ontologically no different than rain or grass growing. But the problem with that, Ron, is those aren't propositional. Events themselves aren't propositional. They're not truth apt. They just happen. They're just happening. So how could you place something that's just happening mechanically in the category of truth apt?
So you're using a lot of words here.
That's what talking is.
A lot of words without defining them. You've introduced the word
like
propositional and truth act.
You don't know what a proposition is?
I know what a proposition is. I don't know what propositional as an adjective means.
Okay, that's fine. Let me clarify. So if I say there's a blade of grass, it would be incoherent for me to say the blade of grass is true. It's just a blade of grass, right? It's not true or false.
The proposition that this thing that you're looking at is a blade of grass.
That's a proposition. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the thing itself without the statement. The thing itself, the blade of grass, isn't.
Well, truth is a property of propositions. So
I understand.
To say that truth can't be a property of a blade of grass, that's just a category error.
Dude, where in the blade of grass is a proposition?
There isn't a proposition.
Great. So you agree. So you agree. Blades of grass as objects are not propositional. That's what we agree on.
Great.
All right. Okay. Great.
That sounds like a deepity to me.
Hold on.
It's an obvious, trivial observation.
No, it's not trivial.
Dressed up in a lot of fancy words.
You're not listening. You're not even trying to listen. So if a blade of grass is not propositional, neither is a tornado, neither is a waterfall or anything else. They're just happenings, right? They're just events. They're objects and events. They're not propositional.
They are not
Yeah, they're not propositional. You agree. Now, if you hold that your brain is a set of more deterministic events that are just unfolding, then your brain, what you call an evaluation itself, is also just an event and can't be propositional unless you do special pleading.
Okay, I still don't understand then what you mean by propositional. That sounds like nonsense to me, because there are propositions and there are blades of grass, and they are two completely different ontological categories.
No, not under the view. If you just said what? No,
they are.
Ron, if you just said what?
So let me explain to you how they are different ontological categories that are my view.
Tell me. All
right. So I have a materialistic view of the world.
Yep.
I actually have two different materialistic views of the world that I could argue from. There's the view of classical mechanics and the view of quantum mechanics. And I'm going to go with classical mechanics because that's a lot more easy to intuit, even though I have to start with the caveat that classical mechanics is actually wrong.
Do you mean by material?
Mechanics,
No, hold on a second. Do you mean by material, do you mean physicalism? Like pure physical?
I mean that the ontology of my theory is that the world is that things are made of atoms that exist in particular places at particular times. And everything that we observe can be explained in terms of the arrangements and trajectories of atoms.
Okay, what about the things we can observe that you think exist?
Those are explanations for the things that I can observe.
No, no,
Sometimes I have to hypothesize something that I can't observe in order to explain something that I can. So for
no,
example,
no, hold on. Don't go too fast. An
okay,
explanation itself, if you're a materialist or a physicalist, is an explanation itself made of physical matter?
no.
Okay. So do you believe in explanations that they
Mhm.
exist?
Yes,
So you believe that things exist that aren't made of matter that you can't actually verify exist?
that's right.
Okay. So if that's your standard
Do
for
you want me to
existence,
explain how?
no, I don't, because
So
if
you're
you
not interested in
no,
learning,
because I'm
actually,
bringing up
you're not interested in actually learning my point
no,
of view.
no,
You just want to dominate the
no,
conversation, but
I
fine,
am
go ahead.
I'm going to dominate the conversation anyway, but the thing is, I'm bringing it back to the topic, which is if you hold a belief that something exists and it's reasonable to believe things that are immaterial, not concrete, non-physical, that they exist, like explanation or logic or truth or knowledge or meaning. These are things that you can't point to in the world, and you just admitted that you think it's rational to believe they exist.
That's right.
So
And I can
if that's
explain why
hold
if
on,
you'll give me a
no, hold on a
chance.
second. I don't care why, because
You
if
don't
you
care why.
this is
Then you
why,
are not
Ron,
arguing in good faith.
No, I'll get
If
the
you
why.
don't care why, then you are not
I'll get
arguing
the
in good
why in a
faith.
Yeah,
second. I'm
Ron,
getting
you'll
to
get
the
a chance to explain your view. I just want to let Jim Bob get the rest of this logic he's thinking
Okay.
down, and then you can respond.
yeah.
Okay, but
Even if you give
okay, but you've made a
dude,
false assumption here.
no,
So
dude,
everything you say from here
chill.
on
You
out
can
is going to
you
be
can say
false.
that in your response.
Wait.
We have plenty of time.
Okay.
Whatever your reasoning is, if you concede that you believe in things, do you think it's reasonable to believe in things without any physical evidence? Then
I
that's
didn't
at
say
least
that.
you just said you believe that propositions and evaluations exist, but they're not physical. That means you believe in something that's
That's not
non-physical.
the same as believing in them without any physical evidence. So
What?
stop putting words in my
No,
mouth.
listen, you're not listening to me. So,
I absolutely am
is there
listening to
any
you.
okay? Is there any physical evidence of a physical thing called an evaluation?
I don't know what you mean by an evaluation.
Do evaluations exist?
I don't know what you mean by evaluation, so I can't answer that question.
Are you playing dumb now? You don't know what it
No, I
means to
really don't
evaluate
know.
something?
I really.
Okay,
So,
so if I wrote down 2 + 3 = 7, and you read that, would you be evaluating that phrase?
okay, is that what you mean by an evaluation? Evaluating a mathematical formula and
Yeah,
computing its
you can
value?
look, dude, you can evaluate the external world, you can evaluate
The
light.
word evaluate can mean all kinds of things. I don't know which of various
What do
meanings
you
that it
think I
can possibly
mean?
have. I have no idea. You have to tell me.
You don't know. Okay, cool. Evaluation. Okay, so an observer looking at and summarizing data.
Yeah, that's obviously a thing that's possible. That's a
Okay,
thing that
cool.
happens.
That thing that happens, is that made of material?
No, the activities are not made of
Oh.
materials.
Do
So
activities exist?
yes,
Okay, so do you believe in something that exists that's not made of material?
yes.
Okay, so there's not a, you wouldn't say there's a physical thing identical to the thing that you're saying exists.
So the thing that's not material that I believe that exists is something called a state. So I said that the ontology of my theory is that the world is made of atoms that exist in particular places and particular times. The thing that matters, the thing that causes all of the complex phenomena that we observe, is that particular arrangements of atoms work differently and have different properties than other arrangements of atoms.
Okay,
And
so
an arrangement of atoms is called a state, and transitions between arrangements of atoms are called activities. And these things exist, states and activities exist, but they are in a different ontological category
okay.
than the atoms themselves.
Okay, so now back to the topic of the debate.
Mhm.
When you believe something exists and it's reasonable to believe it exists, what criterion are you using to determine it's reasonable to believe something exists?
I think it's reasonable to believe something exists if it's necessary to explain your observations.
If it's necessary to explain your observations,
Yes,
then
and
it
by
exists.
that I mean your personal subjective experience. So a consequence of that is that what's reasonable for you to believe exists might be different than what's reasonable for me to believe exists. It might be. I don't
Okay.
think it actually is. It will turn out not to be, but I'm not assuming that. So
Okay,
my
so
criterion is that what's reasonable to believe exists is what's necessary to explain your personal subjective observations.
Okay, but the thing is, on what basis would you trust your personal subjective observations? If I had a personal subjective observation that God exists, and I'm with the majority of humankind since the beginning that we can trace, is it are you calling the majority of humankind unreasonable,
No,
given that their subjective hold on, given that their subjective experience is that God exists?
So yeah, I don't believe that you've had a subjective experience that God exists. I believe
That's
that you've had,
gaslighting.
I believe that you've had subjective experiences that you explain in terms of God's existence. But I believe that if we dug into it, you would realize that these experiences are not actually an experience of God existing.
Wait,
And
whoa, 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 whoa,
you said
whoa.
that
Listen,
so
that's
God
total.
is
Hold on.
a
That's
necessary,
totally
unchanging,
gaslighting.
and transcendental mind.
Hold on. You just gaslit people who have an experience that's just on equal par as you, right? You just made the standard that having a subjective experience will determine whether or not what's reasonable to believe in. That means nominalism. You know what nominalism is? That means that essentially means that you as a particular human are the only standard for what constitutes a reasonable belief for you, Ron. But
No.
your reasonable criterion actually doesn't apply to anyone else because it's all relativistic. So if it's relativistic, hold on. I know you want to talk. If it's relativistic and it's all arbitrarily defined by our personal standards, what constitutes our subjective experience, then me, including everyone else who believes in God, whoever they think God is, from their subjective experience, they came to the conclusion that God exists. So is that a reasonable belief?
Yeah, if it's true, I dispute that. I don't believe that it's true. And
no, the question isn't whether or not it's true.
No, so okay, so you had your Jimbob, you had your chance.
You just shifted.
Well,
Jimbob,
let's let Ron
you had your chance.
give a second here, and
now
then you can respond to it. Okay.
If you're going to interrupt, look, we can either interrupt each other and stop each other.
I can go to timed responses at any point.
Am I talking right now?
Okay. So you said God is a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. And you said that you had a direct subjective experience of a necessary, unchanging, transcendental mind. Is that really what you're claiming?
No, that's actually not what I said. I said if, based on your standards, someone did have a subjective experience that God exists, based on their own standard, would it be reasonable for them to believe in God?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's the debate.
But no, it's not, because the next question is, what's it like to have a subjective experience of God?
It's all subjective to me. You couldn't possibly know.
Yeah, but you can still describe it, right?
Well,
I can describe my subjective experiences. In fact, let me describe one for you. Here's a subjective experience that I had when I was 12 years old. I was at a YMCA summer camp. And this was in,
you don't have to say this publicly.
Don't have to say what publicly?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What is it that you thought I was going to say?
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was at a YMCA summer camp. I was 12 years old. It was in Tennessee. So I was surrounded by Southern Baptists, and they proselytized me mercilessly for 2 weeks. And at the end of that time, I had a conversion experience. And I had a subjective experience that at the time I described as feeling the presence of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home and I told my parents about this. For about 3 days, I was a true believer. I thought I had actually experienced God.
Mm-hmm.
And then my father said, okay, if you're going to be a Christian, you should read the Bible. And I started reading the Bible, and that deconverted me fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But just because somebody says that they've experienced God doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually what they've experienced. It could be that what they actually experienced can be explained by something else. It's possible.
I know, Bron, but the question isn't whether or not you're verifying what they experience is true or not. The question is, if they did have the full experience from their direct experience that they in your case experienced God, you would say from your own experience that at that time, time and place, right, that you just said, it was completely reasonable for you to believe in God, right?
Yeah.
Okay, watch. Okay, watch. If someone like you maintains that experience in their lifetime, isn't their belief in God justified then?
Well, it depends. It depends on what other information they have at their disposal. So in my case, for example, I started reading the Bible. And because of the things that I saw in the Bible, it became very unreasonable for me to retain my belief in God.
Ron, you didn't answer the question. The question is this.
No, I did.
If someone was at the same camp as you and everything after that they did, they read the Bible, they went to other things, they did everything, but it kept producing the phenomenon that was equal to the phenomenon you experienced. And it just kept layering itself, looping itself back to God exists, God exists, God exists. From that perspective, if you isolate one moment in time for you where it's justified and it's reasonable to believe in God based on an experience, then it's also justified for another person. If that experience is elongated for the rest of their life, then it's reasonable for them to believe in God.
Again, maybe. It depends on what else they have at what other information they have at their disposal. But let me ask you this. Is this just a hypothetical or does this really happen?
Yeah, according to you, what's really happening for people who believe in God is exactly that.
Well, I know people who believe in God who don't claim to be directly experiencing God all the time.
Okay, but they're experiencing something.
Sure.
Okay, so when they go to church, they experience something. When they read a book on they read the church fathers, they're experiencing reading, right? They're reading the lives of the saints. So
all of that can be explained without God.
No. The question isn't whether or not it can be explained without God. The question is whether or not it's reasonable to believe in God.
So remember my definition of what is reasonable to believe in.
That it's necessary?
Yeah.
Okay, how would you know it's necessary?
And let me tell you why. Because I cannot prove that there isn't an invisible pink unicorn standing behind me. But I don't think it's reasonable for me to believe that there is an invisible pink unicorn standing behind me because the invisible pink unicorn is not necessary to explain anything that I can observe.
How would you know what's necessary?
By thinking about it, by arguing about it, by consulting with other people and seeing if they can poke holes in my arguments.
Okay,
by having discussions like this one that we're having right now.
Okay. So the three classical laws of logic, you would say you believe they exist because they're necessary for you to do other things.
What are the three classical laws of logic?
The law of identity, excluded middle, and non-contradiction.
Okay, so the law of excluded middle is not actually true. And I can demonstrate that to you, that you've heard of the liar's paradox, right?
Well, no, the liar's paradox, the reality is it's true that someone's either lying or not. The fact that you can't tell.
No, it really isn't. Here, let me demonstrate it to you. You already believe that I'm a liar. You've said so yourself. So I'm going to tell you, yeah, you're right. I am a liar. Every sentence that I say, including the one I am saying right now, is a lie. So
it's either true that you're lying or it's false that you're lying.
Was the sentence that I just said a lie or not?
No, you're confusing whether or not I have access to knowing it versus whether or not there's a truth to the matter.
No, because if you think about it, if you assume that it's true, then it's false. And if you assume that it's false,
dude, that's an epistemic problem. The question of how I know if you're lying or not is the paradox is what the paradox is exposing. The reality is there would be a truth.
I just told you that I'm lying.
Ron, I don't care what you're telling me. If you tell me, if I think you're a liar and you tell me your age, and I don't know if you're lying or not because whatever you're saying, it could be a lie, that's irrelevant to whether or not that's irrelevant to whether or not there is a truth to what your age is.
Well, yes, that's true.
Yeah, so excluded middle is reaffirmed. There are philosophers who actually tried to remove the excluded middle, but by trying to remove the excluded middle, they're actually affirming the excluded middle. Now, even if I remove the excluded middle for you, Ron, right? Don't get caught up on it. The laws of logic, right? Okay. From your view, I'm talking right now. The laws of logic, right? Law of identity, non-contradiction, even if you remove the excluded middle, right? If you affirm those merely because they're necessary for something, right? Then you're actually saying that they're conventions. Are you saying they're conventions?
Yes, I am actually.
Okay, if they're conventions, could you actually remove the law of identity from reality?
So the law of identity is actually not really it's not really a law. It's just a definition. It's a definition of the word of the equal sign. It's just a definition of the word is.
Is that a fact or is that cannot be true? Can that not be true?
It can, yeah, you
Okay.
could possibly present an argument that I'm wrong about that.
Well, no, if somebody can be wrong about something, that's assuming the law of identity is held and static. So
How?
because there's either right or wrong, that's assuming that the law of identity holds true.
No,
No.
that's assuming the excluded middle.
Well, no, yeah, well, the law of identity, the excluded middle is a byproduct of the law of identity. So it's either the case that something's true or it's either the case that something's false, right?
How is that a byproduct of the law of identity? And so first of all, if it's a
It's
byproduct, then there aren't three fundamental laws of logic. There are only two, because
No,
you just told me
no,
it's a
dude.
byproduct. You can
Look,
derive
look,
the excluded middle from the law of identity. But all of this is just utter nonsense.
it's an entailment, dude. To say something's nonsense is to affirm the laws of logic, dude. Is it actually nonsense or is it conventionally nonsense?
It is my opinion that it is nonsense. It sounds
Right.
like nonsense to me.
Well, I mean,
Now,
that's not.
it may be that you are saying something true and profound here, but if you are, then you are failing to communicate it to me.
Okay, let me communicate it in a different way. Before you existed and all humans existed, from your perspective, was there a time in reality humans didn't exist?
Yes.
Okay. Were there items in nature?
Yes.
Did those items have identities?
No.
They
And
didn't.
I'll tell you, and I'll,
Okay,
and I'll
hold on.
tell you why.
Hold on,
Do you know,
hold on,
have you heard of the
hold
ship
on.
of Theseus? I have not finished my answer, Jim
Dude,
Bob.
I'm not finishing my cross exam right now. Okay. I know the ship of Theseus, and it's
Okay.
like the problem with that is it's still universally pointed to as a ship. Whether it's the same ship is not the question. The question is
That
it a
exactly
ship?
the question you
Hold
asked
on.
me.
Is it a dude? You just contradicted yourself. I asked you in the past before humans existed, did objects exist? You said yes. That's affirming the law of identity.
No.
It's not. Okay, objects exist, and I don't know what that means.
So an object is just a word that we use for a particular configuration of atoms.
Do particulars exist? Do atoms exist as particulars in the past before humans?
I don't know what you mean by particulars. Atoms existed
gosh,
before
dude.
humans.
Atoms, are they particulars?
I don't know what you mean by particulars.
A particular thing. One atom, two atoms, three
No,
atoms.
actually, so this is one of the interesting things about atoms. And here we actually have to get into quantum mechanics. Atoms are fungible. Atoms come in a finite number of different varieties. There are 92 of them with some variations on the theme called isotopes. You know all this, right?
No, I think it's irrelevant because the question
No, it's
here.
not irrelevant.
No, this is all, dude. This is all just filibustering.
It's not.
We're not here to learn about what you think about atoms. Okay.
Okay,
The question,
you
Ron.
are here. You asked me a
No.
question about atoms, and I'm
No,
answering it.
that's not the
and then
question
you
I asked.
interrupted me in the middle of my answer.
That's not the question I
and
asked.
then you
though.
complain. So look, Jim Bob, we're either going to be allowed to interrupt each other or we're not.
Okay, don't
Which
answer
is
my
it?
question.
I am answering your question. Your question was, are atoms particulars in the way that you define them? Do atoms have identity? And the answer is no, they don't.
Okay, you have nothing to reference then.
What?
If atoms don't have identity, when you say atoms over here, atoms over there, I don't need to listen to you because they have no referent. You know what a referent is?
Yes.
What's a referent?
A referent is a thing that is referred to by a word or a phrase.
That's right. So when you use the term atom or atoms plural, you are denying the thing you're referring to.
Here we are actually getting into the difference between classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. If you really want me to give you a primer on quantum mechanics, I'm happy to do that, but I don't think that this is really what the audience came for.
That doesn't actually address anything I said.
Well, it tells you that the answer to your question is long and complicated.
Okay, fine. Let's avoid it
I'm
then.
happy to give it to you if you want me to.
No,
but I don't think the audience is going to be well served by that. I think the audience is going to be better served if we make a couple of reasonable simplifying assumptions.
Here's what I'm trying to get to. Okay.
Say this object exists.
Nope, you don't affirm
my
that.
explanation for this object is that it is a particular configuration of atoms.
Yeah.
But the identity of this object is contingent on some things that if you push on the edges of it, we'll find are not true.
Look, dude, it's really simple. The reason I asked
It's
about
not
the
simple at
past,
all. It's
the reason I
complicated.
asked about the past,
Mhm.
if you affirm a past exists where what we call later rocks, trees, water, the laws of nature, right? Gravity, all of these things, thermodynamics, gaseous laws and behaviors,
Mhm.
you would affirm in the past that those things exist, right?
Because it's the best explanation for things that I observe now,
Well, no, it's also,
including the fact that I perceive the passage of time.
yeah, but the thing is, you're assuming a past, right?
I'm not assuming it. The past is something that I hypothesize in order to explain
That's what a
observations in the
hypothesis
past.
is, dude. It's an assumption.
No, a hypothesis is a guess.
That's an
A hypo-
assumption.
no, there is a difference between an assumption and a guess.
Okay, what's a
A
major,
guess is something that you tentatively assume.
is a
No,
hypothesis tentative?
yes,
Great. You're not making any distinctions here. The question isn't about what these words mean. The question is, if you hold to that the law of identity applies in the past to nature without naming nature, it
but
applies to nature.
I haven't conceded that the law of
Uh,
identity applies
okay,
to anything. I think the law of identity is nonsense.
the law of identity is nonsense. And I'm
The law of
actually,
identity is a deepity. It is a trivial observation.
you
It
don't observe
is
it.
it is a definition of a word that we find
Where do
convenient
you
to
observe
talk.
it?
Because I observe people talking about it.
No,
I
no, no,
observe people saying that is a thing,
no,
and it's the same thing
no.
now as it was
That's a
5 seconds
proposition.
ago.
That's a proposition. So the thing is, you just said you observe the law of identity. Let me ask you a different question,
No, I
Ron,
did
because
not say that.
this is going to go nowhere. Do you believe rights exist?
Rights, yes, I do believe. Yes, I believe rights exist.
So you think it's reasonable to believe a thing called a right exists?
Mhm.
And would you admit that a right is not something you can measure or hold or see or taste or move?
A right is a kind of state. It's actually a right is a kind of idea, which is a kind of mental state, which is
That
a
wasn't
kind
my
of
asking.
state.
That wasn't my
It
question.
was exactly what you
No.
asked.
Do you agree that a right isn't something you can weigh, taste, move, manipulate with your
Yes, of
hands?
course, I
Great.
agree with that.
Okay, cool. So you believe a right exists, right? That has some sort of ontology, and you think you're justified in believing the
Yes,
right. Now,
yes, rights are states.
hold on. You said earlier what constitutes rational or reasonable is if it's necessary. Are rights necessary?
To explain certain things. Yeah, rights are necessary to explain the fact that people believe that they exist.
What the hell? So God is necessary in order to justify that people believe God exists.
No,
That's literally what you just said.
yeah, but let me explain to you the difference.
You're
I
a
know that
sophist, dude. You're a sophist.
Let me explain to you why there's a difference. Because the word God is loaded in a way that the word rights is not.
That's not an argument.
Let me finish.
What does loaded mean?
When people,
I'm trying to get loaded. I think you're loaded.
The word God comes with all kinds of intellectual baggage.
So do rights, dude.
Yes, but
Yes,
the
but
word
I'm
God
gonna
comes
totally
with, comes
not.
with baggage like the Bible, like
No, it doesn't.
prayer, like
No, it doesn't.
intervention in the
No, it
world.
doesn't. Not
For a
if
lot
you're a
of people, it
pantheist.
does.
No, not if you're a pantheist or something like that. So
Right,
stop
but
it.
if you're a Catholic, it does.
Who cares? I'm not. We aren't talking about that. We're talking about God as a general belief, just like rights are a general belief. You just gave
If
right.
you want to
Hold
argue
on,
for
Ron. You just said that what constitutes reasonable belief is that it's necessary for all these other things. I asked, are rights necessary? You know what your answer was? Yeah, rights are necessary for people to affirm they exist. Okay, God is
No,
necessary.
that's not what I said.
Yes, it is.
Okay, can I do a screen share on this?
I believe so. Give me one second.
We got into a similar argument in our last debate, and I actually went back and reviewed the tapes.
The tapes.
So I want to play.
You got a VHS?
I also just want to let you guys know we have about 23 minutes left or so in the open dialogue here.
Okay, so while you're looking for that, I just want, because I don't want to waste time here, is that if you affirm rights, but it doesn't meet your criteria for necessary, because obviously people had beliefs before rights existed. And obviously, rights being a thing is a very modern Enlightenment thing, right? It's a
Yep.
creature, right? And if it's a creature, it's also a convention.
Okay,
So if it's a
this is not gonna
convention,
work.
it's not actually necessary for anything, but yet you believe in it. So I'm pointing out one thing you believe that doesn't meet the necessary criterion that you presented. But if you defend rights as a reasonable belief because they work, right? Some people say that. Would you say you defend it's reasonable to believe in rights because they work?
No, it's reasonable to believe in rights because rights are an idea and ideas exist.
God is an idea and ideas exist. Therefore, it's reasonable to believe in God.
You think God is just an idea?
No, if it's an idea, it's reasonable to believe it.
Oh, no, absolutely. God is an idea is absolutely reasonable to believe it.
Cool.
Are you ready to share your screen, Dr. Ron?
I've tried.
Ruh-roh.
I need to do a dry run on this. This is not working, so I'm not going to be able to do it. In fact, now I can't get rid of the sharing window. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. So
Okay, no worries.
I'll just have to post I'll send you a link to, I was going to play a short video clip from our last debate, but I'll just send a link so the audience can look it up later. It's neither here nor there. Let's just get back to this discussion. Yeah, if you want to defend God as an idea, I will absolutely accept that.
Then it's
in fact,
reasonable
I will
to
agree
believe-
with you. God as an idea absolutely exists.
Then it's reasonable to believe in God
As
in the
an
way
idea,
that
yes, absolutely.
Well, so are rights.
And
Just
if that's and if that's the way you define God, then we have nothing to argue about. But
Well,
I'm
then
pretty
why-
sure that's not actually how you define God. I don't think you agreed. I don't think you actually believe that God is just an idea. I think you think that
no.
God has some kind of transcendental reality beyond just a mere idea that exists in people's brains.
Yeah, a being. Like, I could step further that God is a being, a necessary being, but that's not even necessary for the debate because you just conceded that as so long as a belief is just an idea, all ideas that are believed in are reasonable.
No, not all of them.
Why not? They're all ideas.
So when I say God is an idea, what I mean is that God is basically a mental construct, a fictional character, a myth. That's what it means for God to just be an idea.
So are rights.
Yes. No,
So you believe in
absolutely.
myths. So that means that
No,
you
absolutely.
So I want everyone to realize that in a debate on what's reasonable to believe in, Ron here affirms that myths are reasonable to believe in.
As long as you understand that they're myths, yeah.
No. It doesn't matter if you understand their myths.
No, that matters a lot.
No, why would it matter?
Because it's important to understand what ontological category a thing belongs in.
No, dude.
Don't tell me no. This is my worldview.
No,
I get to tell you. I am the ultimate authority of what my worldview is.
That's just your belief, though. We're talking about.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So that doesn't apply to everybody. Like I said, your system for what constitutes a reasonable belief is completely arbitrary.
Do you think that I'm? What would you call a reasonable? What was your criteria for being?
I'm fine with.
Reasonable?
I'm fine with going with justified true belief. Do you know what that means?
That's
a justified true belief.
That's a definition of knowledge. That's not a definition of reasonable.
No. It's justified is synonymous with reasonable in that case. Justified. It's justified that you believe in something. And do you know that that's the going term for what constitutes knowledge?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. And did you know that that's been debunked? That there's the idea that knowledge can be defined as justified true belief, that's no longer accepted. I forget who it is. I could look it up for you if you want to give me a minute. There's a philosopher who's actually come up with a convincing counterexample for that, where somebody can have a justified true belief that is not actually knowledge.
Gettier problem?
That sounds right, yeah.
I understand the Gettier problem, but the problem is that the justified true belief would still apply to the problem itself. So if you
posit, it doesn't. That's a counter. Gettier is a counterexample.
You're not letting me answer. They gave a hypothetical where someone has a justified true belief in something that's false, right?
No, it's
the money in the pocket. The money in the pocket, right?
It's a justified
Who gets the job?
True belief.
No, what you're demonstrating is that someone can come to the knowledge of something true without knowing it's true.
No, that's not the counterexample. The counterexample is that somebody comes to a true belief through a justification that's not the right justification. That's the trick to making this work. And I forget the details because I wasn't really expecting to be getting into these philosophical weeds.
Hold on. Does that make the belief in God doesn't that give it even more elasticity insofar as reasonability?
There's a tremendous amount of elasticity in the belief in God. And where it becomes unreasonable,
Mm-hmm.
but this is what the leap that most people make,
Yeah.
is that when people make claims, material claims about the effects of God on the material world.
Yeah. That's when you stop because you're taking empiricism to be the standard, right?
If somebody wants to believe in God as
Mm-hmm.
just a character in a storybook
Yeah.
from which we can learn lessons, but which doesn't actually have effects in the world, I have no problem with that. That's perfectly reasonable.
Okay, but the
But
thing
again, I don't
is,
think that's the God you believe in. And it's not, and it doesn't make for a very interesting discussion if you won't defend the God that you believe in.
well, the you can't get to the God I believe in unless you start with a general agreement of where we're pointing to insofar
Okay,
as
well,
God.
walk me through it.
I already told you. I told is truth absolute?
No.
Okay, is that absolute?
I don't know what you mean by absolute.
It means it's true regardless of human minds and our opinions and everything else, that the truth of the matter is absolute. It's not going to change. Our conception and our apprehension of it might increase or decrease with resolution, but
So
the truth itself, is it universal and absolute?
I don't know. And let me explain why I don't know. So part of my subjective experience is that I dream, right? Do you dream? You have dreams?
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe your dreams are real?
While I'm in them?
Yeah. Well,
No,
right now,
no.
do you believe your dreams are real? While you're in them, they feel real, right?
Yeah, I have a phenomenon during sleep that's called a dream. Yeah.
Right. And while you're in there, while you're in the dream, it feels real. But then you wake up
Uh,
and you realize that it was just a dream and it wasn't real, right?
yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
Not all the time.
Okay. So how can you be sure that right now that you're actually awake and not asleep and dreaming?
Well, I think that kind of question assumes the distinction that you're trying to deny, which is there's a thing called dreaming to begin with.
So there might not be.
Well, then I don't know what you're referencing.
Dreaming is an explanation for the thing that I observe, which is that I have these weird experiences sometimes that feel
Uh-huh.
real at the time.
Yeah.
And then I go through this transition in my experience that I call waking up.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm in this different kind of reality
Uh-huh.
that is consistent and hangs together in a way that this other experience didn't. And my
So,
explanation for that is that the
uh-huh.
one thing is dreams and they're not real. And the other
Uh-huh.
thing is something I call reality and that is real. But no, I don't know that that's an absolute truth. That's a hypothesis, and it could be wrong. I don't think it is. I'm quite confident that it's not, but it
Okay.
could be.
Okay. So, in order to make a hypothesis, are you affirming that something's necessarily true?
No,
You're not.
no,
Okay. To make a hypothesis, are you first starting with the assumption that there's a you that could make a hypothesis?
no.
Oh, it doesn't.
Even my own existence is an explanation for my subjective experiences.
Great.
It's Descartes,
Well,
cogito ergo
do you
sum.
understand that the turn you just took makes any belief rational?
No, how so?
Because if you don't know you're dreaming and you don't know what the difference between reality and non-reality or dreaming and non-dreaming, then anything that you think of could actually be the case. It's reasonable from that
No, no,
perspective. Hold
it
on, hold
could
on.
be.
Listen, dude.
Sorry.
It could be the case. It's reasonable to believe that it could be the case that
Mhm.
that everything is just an illusion. It could be the case.
Sure. But
That's reasonable.
but the odds are extremely low. So there are
Well,
things
no.
that are reasonable
Do
to
you know how to determine
believe
odds?
as that are true as indistinguishable. The probability that they're true
Do you
is
know what?
indistinguishable from one, or the probability that they're false is
Do you,
indistinguishable from zero. And as far as I can tell, the probability that the objective reality that I observe is a dream
uh-huh.
is indistinguishable from zero. That doesn't mean that it's actually zero or that I couldn't be wrong.
Well, your idea of if from that view, if couldn't be, could be wrong, stochastics, probability, if that you wouldn't even know to believe probability.
I can't refute solipsism.
Well, saying you can't or you can refute solipsism is assuming non-solipsism.
Yeah, I believe in non-solipsism, but I can't prove it.
Okay,
It's
is it
the
reasonable?
reason I believe in non-solipsism is because non-solipsism is a better explanation for the things that I observe,
Okay,
including
great.
having conversations with people like you and getting
Uh-huh.
frustrated
Uh-huh.
because if you were just part of my mind, as the solipsists say,
Yeah. Well,
you'd
I know I've
behave
been
different. You'd behave differently.
I know I've been in your mind for months. So the thing is, how would you know that a God view is less reasonable than a non-God view?
So not all God views are less reasonable. Only the ones that make material claims about the world that are at odds with our observations, which I believe is the kind of God view that you hold, but that you are
Yeah, but
interestingly cagey about.
you already no, you're inconsistent with your criterion. You already said that rights are reasonable belief, but you don't observe rights.
The existence of rights,
Yeah,
because rights are
listen closely.
ideas, and I think
Listen
ideas
closely.
exist.
Ron, listen closely. You
Mhm.
just said, well, belief in God, it doesn't really match up with our observations, but
Mhm.
neither do rights.
Rights are ideas. The existence of ideas absolutely matches up with my observations, maybe not
You
yours,
don't,
but they
where did
certainly
you,
match up with mine.
when did you observe an idea?
I observe the effects of ideas.
I didn't
The
ask
if
you the effects. I asked
I
you the
That's
idea.
the only
When,
thing. Of course, all of these things I can only observe the effects of things.
okay,
Even atoms, I can't directly observe atoms. I
wait,
can't directly observe you. All
where
I
did you,
observe is the light that's coming from my computer monitor
Ron,
that kind of looks like a human being. And my explanation for
Ron,
that, because we've
focus.
never actually met face to face.
Ron,
My
focus.
explanation, look, I'm talking now.
I'm asking you a direct question. You don't even know what I asked you.
I Let me finish.
Finish the answer that you don't even know
The
the
reason
question.
I The reason I believe that you exist is not because I have any direct experience of you. It's because I see your face and your behavior on a computer monitor. And the best explanation for that is that you're a real person somewhere. But
Okay, cool.
I don't have
Can
any
I,
direct evidence of
that's
that.
great. Can I get back to you saying you observe the effects of an idea?
Yeah, I'd like to observe the effects of you. I
Hold
observe
on.
the effects of your
Dude,
ideas.
can you stop for a second?
I'm answering your question.
Come on, stop for a second. You don't even know. I didn't even ask you something. I said, let's bring it back to your statement.
Okay.
When you say, I observe the effects of an idea, can you give me an example of an idea and how you linked? Because you're saying there's a causal relationship between an idea and an effect. Can you give me an idea that you can draw out materially the cause that caused an effect?
I don't know what you mean by draw it materially, but I'll give you an example of an idea that's
Are
causing an effect that I can observe.
are
And that
effects
is the
physical?
idea the ideas that are in your head that are causing you to say the things that you're saying.
Did you observe ideas in my head
I
causing me to do
observe the
anything?
effects of those ideas.
How
I
did you,
observe you saying things, and I
Ron?
explain the things that you say by
Ron,
hypothesizing that there are ideas in your head
Ron,
that are causing you to say these words.
Ron, how did you determine ideas, things that are non-material, maybe from your view, are causing anything?
That's again is a long story.
Ugh, what a surprise. So if you can't answer it, that's
Well,
fine.
I
But the thing
can
is,
answer it. I can answer it. How did I determine it? By studying how brains work, by by actually many years of thinking about it,
oh, you thought about it. Thank
yep,
God
by doing a lot of reading, a lot of study of
you read
neuroscience, a
about it.
lot of doing AI research for
That's great.
20 years.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a long story.
That's great.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you
Do you have a
approve.
book? Do you have a blog?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. What's your
Have you read
blog?
it?
No. What is it?
It's called Random Ramblings.
Random Ramblings.
Yep, you can find it at blog.rongarret.info, and remember that Garrett is spelled with one T.
Well, guys, we still have
And
7 minutes left. I
you
wasn't
should
trying to
read
get
it,
to the
Jim Bob,
channel
because
shoutouts
if
yet.
you read it, we'd have much more
Okay.
productive discussions.
Okay, well, here's the thing I wanted to say is this all started from a couple of key questions. When I ask, we're in a debate about the truth, right? We're in a debate
No,
about
we're in
what
debate about the reasonableness of
I
belief
thought I
in
was
God.
talking. I thought I was talking. So reasonableness is a claim about truth. Is it reasonable?
No,
Hold on, Ron.
it's not.
We
It's
can
just
just
not.
Ron, shut the fuck up.
guys, we can make this the kind of official closing statements and give you both about 3 to 5 minutes each if you like, and then
Cool.
if you would mute yourself when the other person's talking, and you can say whatever you want to say for your closing.
So the reason I asked about truth, it's a truth claim. To say something's reasonable or not reasonable is a truth claim. That's an actual statement. If it's true or not, that it's reasonable is a truth claim. You can't remove epistemology, the knowledge of something, and the statement of truth. And also, it's connected to another category called ontology. And we're trying to establish all of this, right? Like, what is reasonable to believe in? Now, through this debate, Ron went through a variety of criterions that he didn't hold to. He started with, well, what's a reasonable belief is something that's necessary for me to do all other things or something like that. And then I asked, well, do you believe in rights? And he said, yes. And I said, are those necessary for you to do these other things? And he said, no. He said, no, rights are necessary for people to claim that they exist. Well, that applies to God too. The reason I ask about truth, though, is if truth exists and you believe truth exists, Ron's view is you have to believe truth exists in order to do all these other things. The question is, do you have any other reason to believe it other than utility? Now, if he argues utility is a good reason to believe anything exists, then a belief in God, so long as it provides utility, is a reasonable belief. I thought I established that pretty quickly, pretty early in the debate. I don't know how many times, because I don't have a counter on me, but I'm thinking of buying one of those umpire counters or the bouncer tickers, because he conceded to the debate probably like 5 different times without me even prodding him to. He just kind of did it on his own, which, I appreciate. So to the question of whether or not it's reasonable to believe in God, I think the reason what I demonstrated tonight is from Ron's view, it's as reasonable to believe in God as it is to believe anything else, so long as, one, early on, that you trust the person that's telling you until you grow up. But until you grow up, and once you grow up, what's reasonable is what's necessary for you to interact with the world. Well, if a person says and reasonably believes that it's necessary for God to exist to operate in the world, then by all means, it's a reasonable belief. I don't understand Ron's position where he draws the line between a reasonable belief and an unreasonable belief. If he further dug himself a hole and said, all of our beliefs are determined arbitrarily and subjectively. He said he had a belief that God exists because he was at some sort of Pentecostal camp where he's speaking in tongues, and the Spirit came over him, right? He said at the time that was reasonable to believe in God right there. Well, I said, interesting. If someone expands that time frame of the experience and you call it the entire life where they experience that, isn't that reasonable? He said, well, no, it's different because they're exposed to new information. I said, look, if the new information keeps producing the phenomenon that God exists, is it reasonable to believe in God? He has to say yes. So all it requires from Ron's view to hold that belief in God is reasonable, regardless of who the God is or what the God is whether or not it gives you a subjective, constant experience that gives you the conclusion that God exists. And that's enough. That's totally enough. It's completely reasonable. And you know why? Because it's all dependent on that person and that person alone. You can't transpose Ron's criterion onto Jimbob's and Jimbob's onto Sally's. It's all nominal experiences. And any nominal experience you have that produces the belief in something, as long as you think it's real, there you go. It's real. It's real enough to you, right? You can't really argue against it from that view. Now, Ron also denied the law of identity. He denied the ontology of the laws of logic being something that are universal and invariant. He said they're conventions, which means that you can change them. He denied the absoluteness of truth, which itself is a contradiction to say, well, truth maybe isn't absolute. Well, if it was the case, that would be an absolute statement about truth. Now, I didn't really get anywhere else here because every time I tried to press on some of these criterions and standards that he holds to, he shifted to something else and started talking about atoms. He denied that there were particular atoms that exist. He denied that items that without names existed in the past with their own identity over time. Like before we name a tree, It's necessary that a past exists that has trees and water and the laws of nature and the regularities that we see, that rocks don't turn into trees or owls. So certainly, if it's the case that you hold that rocks don't turn into trees or owls, unless you're an evolution proponent,
Alrighty, Jim.
then certainly you're
land your
holding to
plane.
the law of identity before you exist. Now, I tried to get here. Here's how I'll finish. If the law of identity is universal and conceptual and precedes all human minds, then a concept needs a mind. When I say God exists before all humans, I'm merely starting with the position that the mind that holds and inhabit that the laws of logic and all universal categories exist in a divine way, they exist in that mind. That's a necessity. That's a reasonable belief. If I call that God, Ron admitted that's a reasonable belief.
All right, Ron, I will give you equal amount of time, so about 5 to 7 minutes. If you would like to take that, go for it. Sure, you're unmuted, sir.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Yes.
So official closing statement.
I guess I'm
Jim
on.
Bob, please mute yourself so that he can do his thing.
He's
and
playing
then,
solitaire.
yeah. Oh, the chat always
playing
accuses me of
Minecraft.
playing
He's
Prince of
muted.
Desert, so
I
that's fair.
have to say I am impressed by your ability to speak extemporaneously without pausing for breath. That is a skill that I don't have.
I also don't pee a lot.
The sheer number of false statements in that closing is just overwhelming and staggering, and I don't even know where to begin, except to point out that every time that I actually started answering one of Jim Bob's questions in some depth, that he would cut me off and wasn't actually interested in hearing the answer. And so, I mean, I agreed to debate him because I've been watching some of his other debates, and I kind of got the impression that he was actually interested in having a discussion in good faith. And I'm disappointed to learn that that seems to not be the case. I really tried my best to engage with him and find some common ground to have a reasonable discussion. And I'm disappointed that that he didn't meet me halfway on that. He made a big deal about the fact that I conceded part of the argument. Yeah, I conceded part of the argument because these words, God and reasonable, I opened by pointing out that it's important to agree on what these words mean, because depending on what definitions you use for them, you can turn that into a true statement or a false statement. Jim Bob said that reasonableness is a matter of objective truth. I disagree with that. I think reasonableness is a matter of opinion, and reasonable people can disagree over what is reasonable and what is not. And I was hoping to have a reasoned discussion about what reasonable meant and what is reasonable and what is not. I couldn't even get a straight answer from him about whether he thought that it's reasonable for a 6-year-old to believe something that isn't true if some trustworthy authority figure tells them. So I don't know where to go from there. I guess I would suggest to anybody who's actually interested in pursuing these issues in good faith to go read my blog. I'm actually writing a blog about where I discuss all this stuff, and I start from ground zero, where I describe my worldview, which is the scientific method, which is find the best explanation that accounts for all of your observations. And that starts with Descartes saying I explain the fact that I am even thinking about stuff with the explanation that I exist, that there's something out there that I call myself that does this thing I call thinking about things. And then it expands from there, and it's a very long story to how you get to the modern scientific worldview. It's about a 350-year long story that involves thousands or tens of thousands of people putting in some awfully long hours to figure things out. And we figured out just about everything. And there is nothing that anybody observes in our solar system that cannot be explained with modern science. But of course, for any given observation, including the observation that people believe in God, that people will insist that they have direct personal subjective experience of God constantly, that can also be explained scientifically, but it can't be done in 60 seconds. It requires more time and more thought and more deliberation than that. So if people are interested, I'm actually writing a series about finding God in science right now on my blog. You can go find it, blog.rongarret.info. Go read it. That's where you'll find all the long stories that I've been talking about. Anybody who has questions about it, you can leave comments in my blog, send me an email. I'm easy to find. And I love talking about this stuff as long as people are engaging in good faith. And with that, I'll close with that.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for that spirited debate. We got a quick announcement from our sponsors. Then we're going to get into the Q&A super chats. If you guys want to ask these two gentlemen a question, have them both respond to something, send us a super chat. We're going to go for the next 30 minutes for that. And then we'll let them give one more shout out for their channels. And yeah, big appreciation to these guys hashing it out here. All right, real quick from our sponsors. Yonaguni Sushi, International Cuisine. These guys are sponsoring DebateCon 8. Sideshow Bob has this restaurant in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. Stop by if you just happen to be there. If not, go ahead and make a trip because I believe it is worth it. They got fried rice. They got barbecue pork. They got all sorts of Latin, Asian combinations. I think it's on my list personally. So definitely stop by and see Bob at DebateCon 8 if you're there. He's one of our head coordinators, and he also sometimes moderates the debates live. So thank you. All right, guys, we are back. Did you know? Did you know,
Q&A.
Bob, that or Jim Bob, that Bob owns that restaurant?
Who's Bob?
He's the guy who checks people in. He does the moderation as well. That's his restaurant.
Oh, that's awesome.
Very cool place.
That's awesome. I love sushi.
All right, so first one here. Real quick, let me just run through these. I appreciate all these people becoming members on YouTube. MTG Kosi, Jacob, Bedaris, Alex James, Bog HD, Curino, White Mike, Kelly Anderson, Uptown Red, John Anthony Green, Miss Claymore, and CJ Johnson. Appreciate you guys. First question is from Marilyn. We are all God because of God. You're both idol worshippers. Still love you, Jim Bob. King Crown Heart.
Well, if we're all God and you're God and me and Ron team up as gods and disagree with you, then we don't know who's truly God, right? Right, Ron?
Maybe God contains multitudes.
And Ron, you can respond to any that are addressed to him and vice versa, just so you know. So don't be surprised if he jumps in if something is addressed to you. Chef Secret Sauce Nasty just sent $1. Thank you, sir. You probably already got the pizza question out of both of them. That makes sense. Just an acknowledgement that you're here. Appreciate it. Pseudonym 8344 says, "Wake up, Ron. This will be over soon." That's referencing your dreaming comment.
Oh, yeah.
Dave, go ahead.
I have no idea how to respond to that. I mean, clearly it was meant to be a joke. So, haha.
1 second, Mike.
Yeah.
In your concloser, I just want to clarify something. You said everything we observe in the universe can be explained by science. I wondered if that included the behaviors themselves that need to exist before you do science.
Yes, that's one of the very interesting things about science is you can actually explain how the scientific method, why the scientific method works in terms of the scientific method. It's very interesting, but it's a long story.
You want to give us a quick synopsis, short response?
It has to do with Turing machines and universal Turing machines and the fact that the universe can be explained in terms of computation. And I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, and I can see Jim Bob scoffing at this. And
he always looks like that.
For Jim, yeah, I know, but sometimes he's really scoffing. and in particular, when I say something like that, I get that it just sounds ridiculous when you first hear it. I get that. I sympathize. Um, all I can say is,
Read my
and I'm
blog.
not. No, 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 no. Now I'm going to say something that sounds like I'm tooting my own horn.
Oh, do it.
But you'll notice that I don't generally make a big deal about the fact that I have a PhD and that I work for NASA.
Oh, wow.
But but and you're right. I mean, just the fact
Show
that
me your lanyard. Show me your
that
lanyard.
I'm not saying these things to say, because I have these credentials that anybody should give me any credence.
Wait a second,
I'm
Ron.
saying,
I have
I'm
a-
saying,
I have
I'm
one
saying
question.
these things because I'm asking somebody who's listening to me and hears me say something that sounds ridiculous
Have you done
to
have you done
consider the possibility that I might not
know
be a
what you're
complete
talking
idiot and that I
Well,
actually know what
no
I'm
one's
talking about.
no one's thinking that, Ron. I don't know where you got this idea that people were thinking that.
Well, you act like it sometimes.
So, Ron, the question I asked, it doesn't make sense, right? Because science, if you took a basic philosophy of science, the assumption of the regularity of nature gives you the capability of then doing scientific investigation and
No, no,
experiments.
no.
It
I know
doesn't?
that
Okay.
no, it doesn't. And I know that you think that.
Really?
Yeah.
So
And it
science
doesn't.
doesn't. So
And you're
hold
wrong
on. I
about
just want to
that.
make
And it's
sure.
a
Wait,
long story.
wait. Let me just clarify. You're holding the position that in order to do science, a scientific experiment, it's not an assumption that the regularity
That's
of
right.
nature
That's right.
maintains its
That's right.
patterns.
And that's
Okay.
right. And this is very interesting because this is a realization that I didn't come to until fairly late in this exploration. And by the way, my blog, I've been writing my blog for over 20 years now. And as a matter of principle, I've never deleted an entry. That's not quite true. There's one entry in 20 plus years that I
Accidental
deleted
photo. Yeah.
because I wrote something in it that I just deeply regretted.
Anti-Semite.
No, it was criticizing somebody who didn't deserve to be criticized, and so I deleted it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't delete things. And so sometimes I get things wrong and my
Lock 'em
mistakes
up.
are there in the record. And one of the things that's interesting to me, at least, is that about 10 years ago, I wrote an entry whose title was Why Some Assumptions Are Better Than Others. Because I was wrestling with this exact question that you're bringing up. And I thought that you had to make some assumptions in order to do any reasoning. And so I was trying to come up with an argument for why my assumptions were better than somebody else's assumptions. And I put forth an argument that turns out to be wrong, because it turns out you actually don't need to make any assumptions. The scientific method is self-booting. It's self-hosting.
Is that an
really
assumption?
No, it's a conclusion, and it's actually very interesting how it
How do you
works
make
out.
how do you make a conclusion without assumptions first?
By advancing a hypothesis and subjecting that hypothesis to criticism and seeing if it passes all of the criticism. Eventually, you get to the point where the best explanations you have are ones that nobody can improve on without a tremendous amount of effort. And by the way, one of the reasons that I believe in objective truth and the existence of objective truth is not an assumption. It's because of an observation, and the observation is that science converges. There are revolutions in science. There's a very particular structure to these revolutions. Whenever there's big new ideas in science are fairly rare.
Have you ever studied filibustering in science?
Let me just finish this thought.
Have you ever considered going to San Francisco and getting someone to do a beatbox behind you and doing this?
Well, like I said, JimBob is not interested in having.
I am not interested. Neither is the entire audience.
Okay. Next question.
Just had to unmute there. Okay. We got a couple more here. Daedalus, is that Gecko? I can't read the rest of the name. He says, Ron, can you do basic math without the laws of logic? And where do you think humanity would be without logic?
Yeah, I learned to do basic math in elementary school, and I had no idea about the laws of logic then. You can do basic math just by following an algorithm. So yeah.
Algorithms are based on logic, dude. If-then statements, algorithms, if-then, that's logic. You're really frustrating me. I'm like old person's home. You're saying nonsense, bro. Nonsense. Shame. Shame.
All right,
So
you gotta let him at least finish, and then you can say whatever you want, Jimbo.
Okay, sorry about that.
All good.
so I guess, all right. So there are two different ways that I can interpret that question. Can I do math without understanding myself the laws of logic and the foundations of mathematics? Yes, I can. Most people do basic arithmetic without understanding the foundations of math. Is it possible to do math without the foundations of math somehow governing the universe or underlying this entire process? No, because the universe turns out does operate according to laws, and those laws can be described in terms of logic.
And real quick, the second
really,
part of
again, it depends on the meanings of the words.
all right, and the second part of the question was, where do you think humanity would be without logic?
Well, most of humanity gets along just fine without logic, because I think most of humanity doesn't understand logic. Certainly up through for most of the history of humanity, we didn't really have a good understanding of logic and how it worked. And the best example of that is that for most of the history of humanity, people believed that Euclid's parallel postulate was self-evidently true and beyond question. And that turns out not to be correct. And in fact, the realization that it turned out not to be correct, that was the harbinger of a revolution in mathematics, and lots of real breakthroughs followed from that. And we wouldn't have modern science without that. So yeah, it's quite possible for humanity to get by without understanding logic. Most of our history, we've done exactly that.
All right, thank you for answering that. Just want to remind the chat, we got a poll up here. James went ahead and threw that in for you guys in between planning DebateCon 9. We're already planning for the fall, guys. It's going to be fun. All right, so next question is Ron, or sorry, this one's better right before. Jimbob, afterlife and God exist. Dr. Ron, I don't know, it's subjective. That was more of a statement. Apologies.
No, I think there's very good reason to believe that there is no afterlife. I can't prove it, but I think there's very good reason to believe that our subjective experiences are a product of the brain. They're purely physical, and that when your brain dies, that's it. Your consciousness goes away. Sorry to have to be the one to break this to you. And yeah, it kind of sucks, but that's the way it is.
It's not the way it is. That's the way you believe it is,
Well,
which is
yeah,
arbitrary.
obviously, I could be wrong. I kind of hope I'm wrong. It would be great.
Wait a second. Why do you hope you're wrong?
I don't want to die. I think it would be great if there were an afterlife. I don't think there is.
Well, yeah, but if it gave you utility in your life and it gave you some advantage in life to making it through, would that be a justified belief? Would that be a reasonable belief if it gave you comfort to believe?
Reasonable beliefs are those that are necessary to explain observations. That's what I consider to be a reasonable belief.
Hold on.
And believing in something that's false.
Ron, the observation is it gives you comfort. Can you observe people being in comfort?
Yes.
Okay.
This gets into ethics and white lies. Yeah, I believe that there are situations where telling somebody, allowing people to believe things that aren't true, it can be the right thing to do out of compassion.
Great. So if we could demonstrate that it was an advantage and gave people an upper hand and gave them something that would otherwise be absent by believing something false, would you advocate for believing something false?
I have a very hard time imagining situations in today's world where it's really advantageous to believe false things.
Rights are not true.
I see a lot more. They're not false.
Yeah, but they're not. They're fictions, dude. You look, dude. The noble lie of a right.
They're ideas. Not all ideas are fictions.
I know, but look, the idea of a right isn't actually grounded in experimentation or empirics, right? You agree?
No.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Wait. Don't say that. Don't bail on me, dude. Just go with
I'm
me for a
sorry,
second.
but that's the way it is.
Don't
Now,
say it's
if you're willing
complicated.
to cut me some slack here and accept that I'm about to oversimplify, then yeah,
Dude,
sure,
it's a
they're
really
not
simple.
rights are not
Great.
grounded in
Great.
empiricism.
Yeah, great. So the belief in rights, if it's an advantage and a good thing for people on net balance to believe in rights, aren't you advocating for a belief in something that's otherwise unjustified?
There is a difference between otherwise unjustified and actually at odds with observation.
Okay.
All right. One more time, guys. We have a poll in the chat. Just wanted to remind everybody. And oh, you guys are sending Happy Mother's Day gifts? I didn't even know that was a thing. Thank you, everybody who did that. Okay. Delphil1111 says for $10, thank you, sir. Get here late, WJB. Ron, is there a human head in that filing cabinet behind you?
I don't think so.
I didn't even notice that
There
filing
wasn't
cabinet.
the last time I looked.
All right.
But to be perfectly honest, I haven't checked lately.
You don't have to show us.
Can't completely rule it out.
Okay. Bobby Bags here for $2 says, Ron, name a quote conspiracy theory you believe is true.
I believe that the Republicans are conspiring to steal the November election.
Nice.
Jim,
Go Israel.
I'm curious on your perspective on that same question, Jim Bob. You got a conspiracy theory?
I'm a conspiracist. I believe most of them, and then I debunk one. I start with I believe they're true, and then I go. I don't do the opposite. I don't assume they're false. I assume they're all true, and then I go. I pull back on them. That's what I do.
Smart.
Yeah.
Okay. Bobby again for $5 says, Ron, would you agree that diversity is our strength for America?
I value diversity, yes. And not just in the DEI sense. I value diversity in all things as a virtue in and of itself, but that's just my opinion, and reasonable people can disagree. I like variety. I think life gets boring otherwise.
I'll extend the offer to answer that as well, Jim Bob, if you want, or I can move on.
No, I don't think diversity is a strength. Even basic systems theorists, if you look at any system that's workable, there's a sort of cohesiveness and homogeny to it. And things that are diverse and incompatible can't be valued on mere diversity as some sort of virtue. It's true that if there's a bunch of people who don't speak the same language and having a miscommunication produces conflict, then the diversity of language isn't a good thing if it produces conflict, right, and confusion. And if you have miscommunication, it could elevate to violence. And if you hold that violence isn't necessarily a goal, then diversity in so many cases is such a shit show. And I think we're seeing that today with open borders.
I actually just thought of an objective argument for why diversity is good, because it puts you in a better position to deal with a wider variety of unexpected contingencies, because you have a broader base of experience and life experiences and skills. And even in biological terms, biodiversity is good because the opposite of diversity is inbreeding. And
so wait a second, are you saying there's a biological that like races are actually fundamentally ontologically different?
No. I'm saying that this is a completely different thing. I mean, I took the question to mean diversity in general.
Yeah, but Ron,
the thing is,
hold on. Yeah, but the thing is, you said better, and the thing is, if you really truly hold diversity, you're holding a plurality of what constitutes better. So, isn't it true that you can have a cluster of people who actually have a different definition of better than you?
Yeah.
Is that diversity? Do you advocate for that?
So this is again one of those really hard problems, which I've actually done quite a bit of thinking about, and which I have an answer for, but it's not
At
short.
your block.
Yeah. Yes, it's on my blog. Look up the keyword to search for there is ideaism. That's the best label I've been able to come up with for the answer that I came up with for this question. That's a really long story. And you know, this is Q&A, so this is not the time or place for that.
All right, then we will move on to the next one. I think the next one is from Rachel Wilson, member for 5 months here on the Final Word. Thanks, Rachel. Good to see you in the chat. Bob, it's 2026. Nobody reads blogs. Maybe she meant to say Ron.
Yeah, I know. What can I say?
Have you considered OnlyFans?
I was not expecting you to say that.
Yeah, a suggestion like that is just what I would expect from you, Jimbob.
What? No, OnlyFans isn't only for nudity.
Originally, it was
feet.
Big photography, DJs, things like that, and then it got sold.
You could do an evolution thing on OnlyFans, dude.
There's Medium and what's the hot one nowadays? Substack? Yeah, Substack.
Yeah.
But I started writing my blog 20 years ago, and back then Blogger was the hot thing. And so I started with Blogger, and I've been on Blogger ever since. And like I said, I do this as a hobby. I don't have career aspirations here. I don't really care if I have a lot of followers. I'm putting it out there for people who are interested, so that the people who are interested can find it. But if I have just a small handful of people who are interested, that's fine with me.
Ron, you're pleasant.
I try to be. I wasn't always.
Really?
You should have known me. You should have known me when I was younger.
Do you have a flame tattoo on your back?
No tattoos, but I did used to have long hair and a beard.
I could see that, yeah.
Well, I used to have hair.
Hippie. You were a hippie, weren't you? You did a hippie thing.
I was never a hippie, but I did.
Buddhist. Did you do Buddhism?
I was never a Buddhist, no.
Damn. I'm off tonight.
I was a Christian for 3 days. Other than that, I've been an atheist the whole time.
I can't bring up the poll now. I don't know why. I dismissed it. Now it won't let me bring it up. Whatever. Okay. Pseudonym 8344 for 5. Thanks, Pseudonym. Longtime supporter of the channel. At Jimbob, I don't know if Ron was leaning the Bible as a comic book. Can you give him scientific evidence that donkeys talk? Someone separates a C and Superman's better than Batman.
No. Well, no, that would be a different, completely different paradigm. We don't hold to miracles based on naturalism. That defeats the entire paradigm. We hold that things can be violated from this perspective, right? And we don't use naturalism to affirm supernaturalism, right? And by the way, you can't actually defend a naturalistic view without affirming things that you can't find in nature, right? That's in my opener. So it's like when someone says, "Oh, you believe in miracles?" Look, dude, based on your standard of what a miracle is something that can't be explained by the laws of physics. Guess what can't be explained by the laws of physics? The regularity of nature that you need to then do it. No, it can.
It absolutely can.
No, Ron, listen to what I'm saying.
I'm telling you that it can. I know, but I don't think take longer than 30 seconds.
Look. In order to explain the phenomenon of nature, right? In order to explain it and have any confidence in the reliability of your explanation, you have to first assume that it's going to maintain its regularity.
I used to believe that too, and it turns out not to be true.
If it turns out not to be true, it can only turn out not to be true temporarily until it's true.
It turns out that you can demonstrate the regularity of nature, that you can demonstrate that the regularity is required to explain what we observe, but it's not inductive. It's not.
Science isn't inductive.
Science is not inductive. Absolutely not. We've been through this.
Science is not inductive.
Science is not inductive. It is abductive.
Okay, no, abductive would assume that you have you're observing a pattern, right?
No.
So, what are you talking about? Dude, how could you make an abductive conclusion if you're not observing something in regularity?
You really want me to answer that? Because
yes,
I can. It'll take a few minutes.
No. Stop doing that, dude. Stop.
Look,
I hate that.
These things are complicated. Some of these things are complicated and they just require some time. I know you want everything to be
Can you
simple.
define
I know you-
abductive then, please,
Yes,
for the audience?
it's finding the best explanation that accounts for
Or
observations.
what? Oh, no. Operations that are regular?
Yeah, that can be explained too.
That's inductive.
Nope.
Regularity is inductive. You actually observe things over time.
No.
Stop. Hold on. Inductive. You take a set of particulars in time and you come to a generality of the particulars. Yes?
Yeah.
Regularity of things and how they operate. To say there's a set of operations is to view a set of particulars operating in a certain way over time. Yeah?
That's right.
That's inductive.
Yeah, but that's not how science works.
Science doesn't work on observing the regularity of nature.
It works by coming up with explanations for all observations,
dude, you're such a dodger, bro.
including
Observing
the
what?
irregular ones.
No. How do you determine what's irregular if you don't presuppose regular?
Regular is just a label that we humans have invented to.
Oh, you invented it. Okay.
Humans have invented.
Cool. How do you invent
word.
something without regularity?
I'm happy to explain that to you.
You can't explain it, dude. You're a sophist. You know, you're a nice guy, but you need to be taken care of.
Make sure this is the right frame rate.
Ad hominem attacks are the last refuge of the defender of the untenable position.
There we go. Okay, we're gonna hit the rest of these super chats. We got a couple coming in right now and a few that we haven't gotten to yet. All right. Tagoch 284 sent $10. Thank you, sir. What's Ron's favorite flavor of pudding? I think it's time for some pudding, Ron.
I don't eat much pudding.
How about Scrabble?
I'm an ice cream guy, and lately I am on Haagen-Dazs coffee.
What's your nurse's name?
Okay, I've had it.
Right.
You know, if
Dude, come on. This is fun rhetoric, bro. Come on.
We're just about done here. We got like
Stop it, Ron.
5 questions left. Be nice, Jim Bob.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ron. I'm sorry. I pushed the limit a little bit. I'm having a little fun. Okay, I thought you could take it. It's okay.
Oh, I can take it. I don't want to start beating up on you because it's not going to be a fair fight.
Fair enough. I'll stop.
All right. Rachel Wilson for 5 says, boy, I'm so glad I never wasted my money on a PhD. Lord have mercy.
For real.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right about that. This is the reason why I don't usually use my title, because as somebody who has a PhD, you're absolutely right that it's mostly bullshit.
It's a lot of money. All right. JV free.
Well, I had a fellowship, so
that's best case scenario then.
It's a lot of time.
A lot of someone else's money.
It's a lot of time. So no, if you're not doing it for the passion, don't do it. Academia has lots of problems.
Agreed. JV free for $2 says, Ron, what is a woman?
I'm gonna pass on that one.
Jim Bob, what is a woman? You're muted, buddy.
Woman is a biological human that develops a pathway toward developing ovaries, even if it doesn't complete its development.
Okay. JV Free also said, Ron, my blog refutes your blog 100%. Rebuttal.
Oh. Where's your blog?
Present it, JV Free. Think it. Okay, this is...
I'd love to see it. No, I'm absolutely serious about this. If you can come up with rebuttals to the arguments that I presented on my blog, I absolutely want to see them, because that's how I learn new things.
Okay, we got like 1 or 2 more here. 1 second. Switching back. Okay. Josiah Elleron for $10. Thank you, sir. Ron, I also have a PhD. I have never mentioned that connected to a debate. It is not who I am, but what I did. Even PhD folks can say stupid things. After a debate, I would never mention my PhD.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And the only reason I mentioned it is because I was saying things that I recognize sound completely insane. And I just wanted people to consider the possibility that, one explanation for the observation that somebody says something completely insane is that it's actually completely insane, that they are actually completely insane. And that's actually usually the explanation for why people say things that sound completely insane. And I just want people to consider the possibility that there might be another explanation for me saying something that sounds completely insane to you. And that is that I might know something that you don't, and that it might take some effort to actually come to understand these things. That's all.
Not a layman. I get it. I get it. All right, we had a couple more just come in. Dr. R10T907 for 5 says Dr. Seuss is true false. I believe Eve and don't believe him. JB, congrats. I'm sorry, you won lost. That was very
He's in
difficult.
a quantum superposition of having won and lost.
He's demonstrated the law of identity and excluded middle doesn't hold true. From Ron's view, I think, but I'm a little bit tipsy right now, so I don't know.
That's a better take than I had. I just thought he was drunk. Okay, Flavius with a big 20. Thank you, sir. Awesome supporter of streamers worldwide. Ron, did you just make the claim your PhD is untenable?
I don't even know what that means.
What do you think it means?
I have no idea. See, it sounds like a category error to me. Tenability is a thing that is associated with claims and arguments, not with
Ron,
university degrees.
Can you tell me what you don't have to get in full detail, but what exactly you do, what you did do or currently do day to day for NASA?
I was a researcher in AI and robotics. I worked on the research program that led up to the first Mars rover mission. So I was in the very early days of autonomous vehicles, and just to for as a bit of self-deprecation, I quit because I didn't think that the field was making any progress, and I thought it was stagnating, and that I wouldn't see any results in my lifetime.
I agree with you.
And
I think it's never done anything.
I was, absurdly wrong about that. So
Well,
I am very, very mindful of the possibility that I can be wrong about things.
Wait a second. What, Ron? Don't gaslight yourself.
Have you not seen? Well, maybe because you don't live in San Francisco.
No, mate.
I
Don't
don't know if you
gaslight
get my word.
yourself.
There are actual autonomous cars in the streets here. I rode in one the other day for the first time.
I know.
It was
That's
a life-changing experience for me.
I understand, but I'm saying the development of what NASA says it does, like it's usually it kind of just gives you images, and that's another debate. But they work on stuff that locally have some application, but when they promise you stuff, it's usually oh, we're riding a Jeep, on Mars right now, from Burbank. We're using a like an Xbox controller to ride a Jeep around. I actually don't believe any of that's happening, Ron.
Okay.
I'm just saying. So when you look at NASA and you're like, oh, this development is it looks like it's going nowhere. Even if it gets somewhere locally, like cars and robots and stuff, that's cool. But I'm saying that, did you ever get the experience that maybe what they say they're capable of, they're not? Ever?
No.
Okay.
So I didn't actually work on the Mars rover mission itself, but I did work on a different mission. So, and here again, this is a perfect illustration of where it can be reasonable for different people to believe different things, because I have had the benefit of experiences that you haven't. So I've actually worked on a real space mission. I have direct experience of what that's like, and you don't. You have to take the word of people like me for things like that.
Yeah.
And I get that. You have better reason for skepticism than I do. So one of the reasons why I don't like it when things get testy is because I get that I have a duty to demonstrate to you that I am trustworthy. And I'm trying to do that to the best of my ability. And I don't feel like you're meeting me halfway on that.
No, I don't believe anything you guys did at NASA.
Okay.
Not a damn thing.
I did get a clarification.
Well, maybe we can have a debate about that sometime or an offline discussion.
Let's set it
Maybe.
up. But I did get a clarification on Flavius's question of the claim that you admitted your degree was untenable. He just meant, like not worth it, or let me see, scroll up and give you his specific
Well,
qualifiers. Justified,
justified.
worth it.
Worth it. So it was worth it for me because and I'm going to get really personal about this in part to try to persuade you that I'm trustworthy and I'm telling you the truth. I got my PhD because when I was that age, I had a certain kind of insecurity, which I thought that being able to call myself a PhD would help. Because I saw that people with the title got a certain kind of respect and deference that I wanted. And that people now that I have the title will occasionally give me. But the problem is that having gone through the experience, I now realize that the respect and deference, I mean, it's not completely undeserved. A lot of people with PhDs actually did do something pretty good and went on to do good things. And it is kind of an indicator of a willingness to stick with something and engage in a certain level of rigor.
You thought you were going to get laid.
Oh, no, absolutely not. If you're getting a PhD to get laid, you are definitely barking up the
Wrong
wrong
path. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think that especially in academia where
Little disillusionment after
I'll tell you. So
a
my
while.
sister actually went into academia. She was a professor at a university.
Real quick, Ron.
Became,
people don't want us to end, so they sent about 5-6 more super chats. So if you could just condense the story. Sorry,
I'll skip this story. It's not
that
really
would have been
important.
maybe like the second to the last question. I would have let you finish that. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay, but the good content idea would be go create a YouTube channel, and then every question that you had a longer response to, you could really
I thought
get
about that.
into it.
The problem is that I made a movie once, long time ago, and so I actually know how much work it is.
What's it called?
You're gonna love this.
I'm gonna review it. If it doesn't have guns in it, YouTube flags live streams with guns, which sucks. So I can't review music or movies that have any action in them, which sucks. They flag it.
It's not on YouTube. It's on iTunes and Amazon. It's an actual feature-length documentary about homelessness.
Perfect.
And it's called "But for the Grace of God?" with a question mark.
How coincidental.
Ooh. Movie plug.
Anyway, having done that, I know how much work it is to make videos, and I just don't have time for that.
You are right there. That's all I'll say. Doesn't have to be high budget. Okay, next question here. We just answered the logic one, and then dovetailed back to Flavius. Appreciate the clarification, Flavius. Chaw XDD for 10. Thank you, sir. Hey, Ron, my shoulder is not in the best shape, and I might need surgery at some point. As a man who likely replaced multiple joints, would you recommend surgery? Oh, I thought he was saying he had multiple joints recommended on top of that when I first read it.
No, I'm pretty sure that was just a dig. I haven't actually had any joints replaced, so I can't speak to that. Next question.
Awesome. Good for you. Me either. Airborne Animal 9170 for 10. If a scientist refused to answer a simple biological question, i.e. what is a woman, you can just dismiss their arguments. They just are a member of the leftist mob where logic and reason do not exist.
I actually have a question about that, Ron. Why is it that you were unable to answer that question?
I'm not unable.
What's the problem?
I just recognize it as a loaded question. That's an entree into a political discussion that I don't feel like having right now, that we don't have time to have right now. So I'm just trying to save time.
Yeah, I mean, I only was trying to get through it just because usually if there's not a lot of super chats, we wrap it up after 30 minutes, but now they're kind of coming in. So, I mean, as long as you guys are willing to be here.
Sure, I'm good.
So, but you also don't have to answer every single question. Just, it's not forcing you. But it's good to have a good back and forth on stuff. Keeps it going. Interesting. But yeah, Jim Bob, that last one, I don't know if I cut you off when you were asking the question. I'm sorry.
No, he
Oh,
answered
okay,
it. That's fine. Yeah.
Pseudonym says, Jim Bob, can you show us God and what he looks like?
What he looks like? No, I can't show you what he looks like.
JK Fuerte for 5 says, ask the boomer if he's looking forward to the government disclosing the alien files.
What do you think about that, Ron? The whole alien. Look, let me set it up for you, Ron. The administration seeks out these like Southern wild, like Baptist, Pentecostal wild people, like they're cultists, like they're legitimate Christian, pseudo Christian cultists, and they select them all to then tell their congregations about the deep knowledge of UFOs. What do you think about that?
Sad. I don't
Do you
even know
think
what to say.
think they exist? Do you think UFO like do you think that
No, I
do you
don't
think
think
UFOs
I mean, UFOs obviously exist because they're just unidentified flying objects. So they're obviously objects that are flying that are unidentified. I don't think they're extraterrestrials. No.
do you have a reason? Because like I engage with some atheists and they like the idea that well, if the universe from their conception is so vast, you know, from their stochastic system, that it must be the case that
Oh,
that other life exists that would be considered extraterrestrial.
oh, sure.
And
I think extraterrestrial life exists. I just don't think it's come here.
okay, well, how would you like if if here is a place that intelligent life could come to? Um, this is what I think. Let me tell you, let me see what you think. Is that I think the secular atheist view is going to adopt in our lifetime an intelligent design view that's not God. And they're going to adopt a view that life was actually distributed to us, giving them their abiogenesis. Do you think that's reasonable as a
Um,
narrative?
so up until a few days ago, I would have said yes, actually.
Mm,
But there's actually been a recent breakthrough. There was a there's a discussion of this going on in the creation subreddit where I'm a regular.
of course
That's
you
another
are.
place to find me, by the way.
Mm,
Um, because back in February, it turns out that somebody published a paper that they produced an RNA replicator in 45 bases. And I can't explain the significance of that here because it's another one of those long stories, but I have a blog post about it. And so, no, that completely destroys the argument that that an intelligent designer is necessary to get life started here on Earth. And you can actually, there's actually a mathematical a mathematical argument uh, that this experiment refutes that
do you think math is descriptive or explanatory?
math
Yeah.
math is a tool. It's a process. It's a procedure. It's a tool. It's a way of constructing models, which are systems whose behavior mimics the behavior of other systems.
Is that explanatory or is that descriptive?
What's the difference?
The difference between descriptive and explanatory?
Yeah.
I would say like descriptive is like, let's say, you describe that water boils at some point.
Oh, okay.
Explanatory would be what causes water to boil at some point.
Then it's explanatory.
Math is explanatory.
The story that I just told you about what math is and how it works and why people care about it, that's explanatory. That is an explanation. Math itself is it's just a procedure. It's
Mm.
neither descriptive nor explanatory. It's
Have you
just
ever considered doing sci-fi like Robert Heinlein style?
yeah, but I'm no good at writing fiction.
Oh,
Oh,
I've
for the
tried.
for
I
the
really
blog.
suck. I suck at it.
oh.
That's why, yeah, that's why all the writing I do is in my blog because that turns out to be where my skills are, such as they are.
Well, so everybody's got to have a creative outlet. Here we go. Next one here, Josiah Elron for another 10. Thank you, Josiah.
Still.
Am I muted? Sorry. Oh, no. I thought you were talking about. He said, I'm so confused, Ron. You didn't mention that last disclaimer about your PhD. When you mentioned your PhD, humility was not your aim. No one hearing that said, PH, that dear, humble man. I'm kind of lost what he's trying to say in the very last one.
Not a question, so.
Sometimes people pay to be heard. Marilyn says for $5, space
great.
is fake, and then she posted an Israeli flag.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to stay for actual questions, but if this is just going to be people paying to play, then I have dinner to make.
For sure. There's four
What are you gonna make?
left.
Chicken franchise? Steak au poivre?
I am hungry too. All right.
Penne? Penne alla rabata?
Here is a question. I mean, it's going to be up to you to determine how pay to play
I did
it
already.
is. JV Free says, Ron, how do I best atone for my white privilege?
Ooh.
It's kind of serious, kind of silly, you know?
Boy, is that a loaded question. Oh my God.
Is he doing
This
the
is-
work?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I actually wrote some blog posts about this that got me into
Right.
big,
Wait, what was
big
without getting
trouble.
into it, can you just give me the summary? What got you in? I'm so fascinated what gets people into trouble. Can you give me a 3-sentence? What's the premise that actually got you in trouble?
It wasn't a premise. It was a post that I wrote, and boy, I got to be really, really careful about how I say this because the person that I got in trouble with might see this someday, so I want to be very careful. It's all on the record, so you can go read it. It's a long, long story. I this happened a long time ago, so I don't really remember the details. And because I can't remember the details, and because I have to be careful, I said something that somebody who was at the time, I would have called them a good friend of mine, or at least an acquaintance that I had lots of cordial interactions with. Made me come to realize that they held some views that I found very distasteful. And I was very surprised that they held these views. And I told them that I found these views distasteful, and they took umbrage at that. And that ended up torpedoing that relationship. So yeah, that's a very loaded topic for me. I'm happy to talk about it, but I want to be very careful, and this is not the time or place.
Ron, when you hire a prostitute, do you talk to them or do anything?
Okay, I'm done.
All right, Jimbo.
Good night.
Well,
No, I'm serious. That was the last straw. So if you have a last question for me, I'll entertain it. But
sure.
I'm done listening.
That was
to
a
Bob.
question.
Well, not from the
A real
audience,
question.
Jimbo.
A real question.
So yeah, we do have some real ones here. One is from Kyler Ran Emil is, does math exist without humans? And then Jim Bob, if you could, let him give a full response, and then we'll get your response as well. That's
actually a much better question than you probably realize. Let me answer it indirectly. This paper that I mentioned that was published in February about this RNA replicator. Somebody asked me on my blog if it was possible for transistors to form spontaneously naturally. And the answer, which came as a surprise to the person who was asking the question, is not only can they, but they almost certainly do. And in fact, there are natural diodes that were actually used for something called a cat's whisker crystal radio back in the early days of radio. So The answer is I don't know. It's possible. It's actually possible that math can exist without humans. Um, my guess is not, but it's not impossible.
All right, Jim Bob, would you like to answer that question?
Well, I think math is conceptual. So the same argument I posited early in the debate is like if things are conceptual, then concepts never exist absent a mind. And so if math exists absent humans, the way it exists, Ron, is an ontological question. And so what's the way it exists? Obviously, math doesn't exist in a rock or a tree or the air or the ocean. So if math exists in some type of way, and it's conceptual, then it would exist from what we know inside of a mind.
So it's funny you should say that math doesn't exist in a rock. Have you heard of calculus?
Calculus is a description of a rock. Dope.
Calculus is a description of a rock?
Yeah, calculus describes. A rock isn't found in calculus. Calculus is not found in a rock.
You know, calculus is a branch of mathematics, right?
Yeah, mathematics describes. Math isn't found in a rock.
You know where the word calculus came from?
That's an etymological fallacy.
No, this is just a side story. Calculus got its name from the Latin word for rock.
Yeah.
And the reason that it got its name for the Latin word for rock is because the very earliest math was literally done with rocks. It was done by putting rocks in.
That makes sense.
You know, you when shepherds would let their sheep out into the pasture, they'd take an urn, and every sheep that went out, they'd put a rock in the urn. And when the sheep came back, every sheep that came back in, they'd take a rock out of the urn. And if the urn wasn't empty at the end, they'd know that there was a sheep missing. That's literally
beautiful.
how math began.
That's beautiful.
And the reason that this could happen naturally is because it turns out that all math can be described using some fairly simple mechanical objects. The most common one, the one that's most widely known, is something called a Turing machine. But there are lots of other ways that you can do the same thing. And they're all fairly simple. And some of them could plausibly arise spontaneously in nature.
I love you so much.
Well, we got to wrap this up with this last couple super chats so he can make some dinner. But I appreciate you guys engaging on that one. Orthophronesis for 5 says, Ron, if you go to liturgy afterwards, you can tell all these stories, you know? St. John Maximovich relics are in San Francisco. I don't know if I said that correctly.
That's actually interesting. I want to know what an atheist view is if they go to divine liturgy. Like they already have the supposition that it's false, but I wonder if Ron would get something out of going to like an ancient liturgical ceremony. I wonder.
I've never been to one. Be happy to try it.
Yeah, like from a historical perspective, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
As a cultural experience, I'd be happy to give it a go.
Yeah, I think you should. I think because
you want to connect me with someone here.
I don't want to dox you, but are you in the area? Or what area are you in? You don't have to tell.
West Coast.
West Coast.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay. Ron Garret, my audience can help you out with that. And honestly, I invite people all the time, not for some sort of like desperate conversion attempt, but from your perspective, I wonder what you would experience, because there's a lot of people who go to it and they have these like unique experiences of liturgy, even if they're atheistic and like sort of like a natural.
There's only one way to find out, and it's an experiment I'm happy to do.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you. That's awesome.
The chat, Ron, says, and I've seen actually several W's for you right now. They all say, we all love you, Ron. Head up, Boomer. So it's like a we like you, and then they still throw a little slap there just to keep everybody in check, I guess. But they do seem like that.
I think they're
applauding your open mind, so I want to give you that to also as the mod.
I'm not actually a boomer, by the way.
I know none of us are, right?
I'm right on the hairy edge.
There's like a neo boomer though. Like we are all kind of.
I am a man without a generation. I'm too young to be a boomer and too old to be an Xer.
Oh man, that's like a generational orphan. That's the worst.
Yeah.
But it's unique.
I get called a boomer when I mute myself and I'm talking on the stream. So, all right, we got like two more. I think one just came in. I might not read that one. Here we go. What comment, Airborne Animal for 5, what comment does Ron have on the numerous examples of fake space videos on YouTube where the astronauts are on wires and using backgrounds?
Well, obviously, I mean, there might be somewhere where they actually are on wires and using backgrounds, but obviously, I think that most of them are actually real. And I think there are actually some very good channels out there that debunk these conspiracy theories. So I'll defer to them. Let me.
Ron, have you ever seen the interview with who's the main guy? I forgot his name. He was interviewed with Conan O'Brien, and he was telling the story, right? Buzz Aldrin. He was telling the story, and you know, Conan's like, I remember I was with my family. I was a young kid. I saw the TV, and I remember, and I said, hey guys, look what's happening. And it was the weirdest thing. Like Buzz Aldrin said, and you could find the recording. He said, no, you didn't watch anything. You watched an animation. He literally told the audience. Now, I'm not gonna, it's obvious to run with that. I'm a conspiratard, okay? Admittedly, I'll run with that. But it is bizarre that he said that and he admitted it. That means that at the time,
I don't believe he really said that.
no, he really did. I promise you. You could. I promise you. 100. I promise
show
you.
Show me the
Can
tape.
you do it? Can you bring it up? Can you bring it up?
You want me to screen share for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Search. Do you want me to find it?
Yeah, I can share your screen if you know what you're looking at.
All right, let's do it. It's the most incredible thing because he's correcting Conan O'Brien on this idea because people are they're at their homes, they're watching the TV, they're waiting for this centralized system of communication from the TV to tell them what's going on, and then he corrects him. He said, no, that's all animation, dude. Like the whole thing is animation. Like you don't know what you're talking about. Let me see. Here we go. Share.
Well, there are certainly some things, especially back in the Apollo days, that were animations because they didn't have cameras in the right places to show them to you.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Everybody at the time, you got to consider this. Everybody at the time, Ron, thought they were watching an actual thing happen, and it happened, and this lingered for many, many, many years, and only until later, when people were questioning it, is it something that people are like, oh wait, that's weird. I didn't know it was actually not real.
You want to full screen
did you get
that?
Yeah, you can full screen it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Or if you full screen it, it'll take up the whole stream.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Me. Oh, okay. Full screen.
There you go.
All right, ready?
Mm-hmm. Your volume up?
Yeah.
Not getting anything on my end from
Nothing? Oh.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it.
Oh man. All right. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Let's not.
Oh, I know.
Because
I know
I
why.
really do have to go soon.
I know why. It's
give you.
All right. Well, you can watch. You can watch it.
Send me the link. I'll watch it offline. And
yeah, you can watch it. You can watch it. It's fine.
And I'll write a blog post about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good way.
Yeah. You should write. Yeah, you should do that. Yeah, definitely.
And then Jimbob can review it on his stream.
Sure.
There you go. Okay, I think there's one more from the guy who recommended you go to the Orthodox Church for the Divine Liturgy or Orthophonesis, and another 5. Thank you, sir. He said it's called the Holy Virgin Cathedral, Joy of All Who Sorrow in San Francisco. Appreciate you.
Better if you email that to me because I'm probably not going to remember. But
Can I get your email from Mike? And get someone who I know who can direct you to look at.
Yeah, emails.
In the Zoom link, I put both of you in the same email, so you should have it now.
Yeah, I'm just asking Ron for permission for someone in your area to email you.
Oh,
yeah, of course.
Gotcha.
Okay, thanks.
Now, my email address is easy to find.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Jimbob, now everyone's calling you a boomer for not getting the
I
sound
am a boomer.
to work.
I am a boomer. I am a boomer in my spirit, yeah.
Okay, one more here. Pseudonym 8344 says, doesn't God look a little bit like Jesus? Bad answer. That was to.
I think that was an allusion to the earlier question where somebody asked you, what does God look like?
Yeah, can you show us God?
Yeah, you could say like God as man incarnate would be like Jesus, but it's like it would be flawed for me to affirm like a really strict image of Jesus. It would have to be like a generalization. So that's why I said no.
And then one last one, just because JV has been multiple comments that were pretty respectable. He said, "Give answers, Ron. You tease. We're intrigued."
Happy to give answers. You just have to give me the time.
Well, yeah, I think there was a little bit of misunderstanding on how much time we had left because the chats weren't flowing like that.
No. I mean,
And you
this
gotta
is a
eat dinner.
debate. It's a show that there are things you can't do in a show that you can do in a classroom or in a textbook or
Yeah, you can't bust out a whiteboard.
there's a reason that people study for years to become scientists and make their living doing science. There's a reason for this. And that's because you can't just get it all out of a soundbite. That's just not how it works. Sorry.
Understandable. All right, I think that's it for the super chats. Make sure I didn't miss any that weren't overly inappropriate. I do filter the worst ones out, believe it or not. Believe it or not.
I absolutely believe
Oh,
you.
they're probably directed to me though, Ron. You don't have to feel bad.
There's a couple of me as well.
You? Good. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
no.
By the way,
Welcome.
That's how you know you're doing good.
That's one of the reasons I don't do YouTube is because I don't want to deal with all that shit.
Oh, there's so much abuse, Ron. It's crazy.
Oh, I know. Why do you do it?
I'm good at it.
Okay.
You know?
Also fair.
It's
Well, I
fun.
guess
It's fun. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's like, you talk to your audience and you don't live stream, do you, Ron? Or
No.
Oh.
The only online appearances I do are these debates, and these two that I've done
Well,
with you are the only ones that I've done
well,
in the
Ron,
last 5 years.
look, Ron, there is something to it. I know there's a negative side to it, of course, but like if you live stream and find your audience, like it's actually pretty fun to develop like a relationship with your audience and like
Yeah.
talk to them about things, and people challenge you and people want to like call in like
Okay.
and challenge you, and it's like it gets really kind of fun actually.
All right. I will. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start a pod. I've actually been toying with the idea of starting a podcast, but I've been having trouble finding anybody to be my inaugural guest on my podcast.
Okay.
So if anybody out there is interested in
I'll be
being
a guest if you launch it, okay?
Well,
I won't insult you.
you know,
I'll be good. I'll be
when I
good.
said I'm done with you, I meant it.
You're not though. You're not, Ron.
Well,
You're not done with
no,
me.
I'm not going to debate you again because your
You're
behavior
meanie
is just unacceptable to me.
Yeah,
So,
but that's arbitrary. So it's like acceptable actually.
yeah, but I get to make this choice.
That's fine. I'm gonna help you anyway.
So no, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
One last one here, real quick, Ron, and I will let you say whatever you want to say and shout out your blog again. Slow John Doe,
you.
€6
or pounds. He said, "God is
actually,
hard." Yeah,
Can I just interject here?
yeah, absolutely.
There's somebody who follows me on my blog that I actually met in the creation Reddit. His name is, and I don't know whether he's watching live or not because he lives in a weird time zone and it was crazy early in the morning. But Samuel, if you're out there and you want to be the inaugural guest on my blog, I would love that.
Fine, I'll do it.
You're not Samuel.
That's funny.
Law of identity affirmed?
Believe it or not, Ron, your guys' exchanges back and forth is hilarious. So the audience was loving it. You guys have great rapport both ways, and I think it's, even though there was some rough edges on some things JimBob said.
That's
to you.
I'm a little bit rough on the edges. Okay?
I
I had three
think
older brothers.
If you just take it as
but I warned you and I warned you and I warned you, and you crossed the line once too often.
I'll cross every
I'm done.
line. I will cross every one of your lines, Ron.
That I have no doubt.
I will cross every line, Ron.
Bobby, I cannot read those. I cannot read those super chats. I'm sorry, brother. Okay, one last somewhat serious one. Slow John Doe. God is hard to define. God is hard to define in the first place. So whether you believe in it or not may come down to how you define the divine. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I think it's in the end, the essence is unknowable. It transcends all things, and whether or not the basic is you hold something that exists that can't be captured and reduced to how we understand existence. Is the best. That's the best way I can say it.
I'll let Jim Bob have the last word
That's all.
because I think that's a fine place to end it.
Sure. Let me just make sure that there was none directed at Jim Bob that I missed. Okay. Yeah, these two I can't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead and shout out your channel, Jim Bob. Appreciate you being
Made
here.
by Jim Bob. I am live. I will stay live for an after-hour party hangout, right, with you guys. I appreciate Ron. I do appreciate you. I'm a little bit aggressive. I know that, but I'm glad you
More
stayed.
than a little bit.
Stayed around and handled it like a man. That was good. This topic is an in-depth topic. Honestly, this topic of God's existence, honestly, would probably require at least 2 hours to really get into it. Because I agree with you, Ron. Like, if you start with,
I don't think we'd finish it in 2 years, frankly.
it's been thousands of years.
Been 2,000. Yeah, people have been arguing for 2,000 years and we're not done.
Yeah, but I do agree that, like, if you start from a generality of God, I do agree with you that eventually you have to keep filtering down to who God is and see if that's reasonable. So I agree with you, but I thought...
Wait. Did the words "I agree with you" just escape your lips?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh my God.
There we go.
Yeah.
Truly, I believe in miracles.
That's all it took, Jimbo. That's all it took. Then on that note, go ahead and shout out your blog again, Dr. Ron, and maybe what you
Random
plan
ramblings
on...
at blog.rongarret.info.
And then do you have an idea for what you're going to call your podcast stream? Same thing?
No, it never got close enough to being real for me to actually have to come up with a name.
All right. Well,
that's all right. I'll be ready for the second episode. Okay.
Yeah, we'll check back in a few weeks and make sure you're still on it.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I do appreciate your good spirit and both of you guys getting into it. We're gonna go ahead and end it here. Thank you, chat, for being engaged, and yeah, big W's for everybody involved.
Adios, y'all. God bless y'all.
All right.
Thanks for hosting, and thanks, Jim Bob, for engaging.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Ron.
All right. Have a good one, chat.